How's going guys, welcome to the channel. In this video we are gonna see, what if Naruto was the beast of the Cataclysm? Part 1. Huge shout out to Syareoo for this story. If you wants to see awesome fanfiction like this, don't forget to subscribe. Now let's get into the video. Madara had just been revived with a Jedmarin Tensei, no Jutsu outer path Sak's Ra of heavenly life technique, and with his newly revived body, easily overpowered Hashirama and absorbed his Senjutsu chakra. Madara then mowed through a platoon of shinobi before stopping in front of Shukaku, Madatabi, Isobu, Son Goku, Kakuo, Seiken, and Shimei. "I'll be taking you all next, you filthy beasts," Madara announced as the remaining shinobi evacuated the area. The blind Madara leaned forward before jumping towards the Biju. Gaara, who was floating on his sand cloud directly in front of Shukaku's face. Gaara stared in surprise at Madara's approaching form. "Shukaku. Get ready," Gaara said before extending his hand, forming small compacted balls of sand. Shukaku formed the ram hand seal. "Let's go wild. Pton. Sasandin wind release. Sand buckshot." Shukaku cried with joy as he released a powerful blast of wind, causing a large amount of compacted sand balls to fly at Madara like a shot from a shotgun. Madara crossed his arms as he was continuously pelted by hundreds of sand bullets, which pierced his skin, causing him to bleed. "Nice jutsu," Madara praised after the sand buckshot stopped. "But it lacks the finishing power," Madara said before divabooming. Gaara clenched his fist as the sand within Madara's body began to restrict his movements. "So, you implanted your sand with this jutsu to stifle movement," Madara said before Madatabi struck him with her paw, sending him backwards. Madara flew into Isobu, who is curled into a ball. Madara proceeded to bounce off the ground as Son Goku jumped into the air before kicking Madara away. Kakuo proceeded to headbutt Madara into the air while Shimei flew above Madara before striking him down to the ground with her horn. Seiken released a large pool of acidic poison which Madara fell into. "Now, Shukaku," Gaara ordered. Shukaku shot his arms forward as they turned into sand, which snaked their way through the acidic poison before attacking Madara. The sand quickly took a pyramid-like shape as Shukaku's natural curse seal spread across the pyramid. "Sabaku Sumtezumfkin Desert Layered Imperial Funeral Seal," Gaara thought as he lowered his guard. "It's a Sabaku Sumtezumfkin that uses my sand and curse seal pattern. He'll never take another breath of fresh air again," Shukaku declared with a chuckle. A blue ethereal blade burst through the pyramid, catching Shukaku and Gaara by complete surprise. Madara's humanoid Susanoo dug its way out of the pyramid. The other Biju looked on in astonishment and fear as the Susanoo leaped out of the pyramid, completely jumping over them and landing far behind them. Floating within the chest of the Susanoo, Madara spoke. "I'll be putting collars on you shortly. Not one of you will be able to get away," Madara declared. "I won't let you." Naruto roared within Kurama's avatar. With a strike from Kurama's mighty tail, he slammed the Susanoo into the ground. "No one here is going to wag his or her tail for you," Kurama growled. "Sorry we're late. We were moving the injured." Gyuki spoke to his sister Madatabi. Madatabi replied immediately. "Don't worry. There won't be any more wounded, we're ending this now." "Stack tails," Kurama ordered. "Right." All the Biju replied as they too struck Madara's broken Susanoo with their tails shaking the ground and causing a large explosion of dust and debris. "You were close, damn raccoon," Kurama taunted. "Quick ordering us around, you dumb fox," Shukaku retorted. But this should Naruto thought as one of Madara's arms fell out of the cloud of dust while Madara jumped out, landing far away from the Biju. "Persistent bastard," Son Goku grumbled in annoyance. "But he's already taken a beating," Madatabi thought aloud. "Alright. One more blast," Naruto cheered. "Yeah, let's go, Naruto." Gaara cheered his friend's enthusiasm. Madara had just received the second most brutal beating of his life, the 9 Bijus literally just crushed him. And to top it all off, his arm was severed at mid-bicep and he had multiple marble-sized puncture wounds all over his body. A white humanoid figure with green hair and yellow eyes emerged from the ground beside Madara. "Sorry I'm late, Madara-sama," Zetsu spoke calmly to Madara. "You're finally here. Do you have it with you?" Madara asked. "Of course," Zetsu replied as Madara severed his arm at mid-bicep level before sticking the prosthetic wide arm onto his bleeding stump that used to be an arm. Madara flexed his new arm a few times before implanting his eye. Madara opened his eyes to reveal a light purple scleras with a ripple pattern spread across the entire eyeball. Madara gave a sickening grin as he cried tears of blood. "This should make things a little bit fun," Madara declared before grunting in pain and staring at the puncture wounds in his arm. Madara reached down before licking the blood from one of his puncture wounds. "A taste of this blood, this pain. This is my body," Madara said calmly before he began to laugh in an insane manner which even frightened the Bijus. "Finally I can fully savor battle again," Madara thought before he calmed down. Madara glared towards the Biju as he smeared blood across the palm of his new prosthetic hand. Kurama was now on full alert as Naruto took notice. "What's wrong, Kurama?" Kurama snarled. "His blood, it's bringing back some really bad memories." Kurama replied. Naruto narrowed his eyes. "Blood," Naruto muttered to himself. "That repulsive blood he used to summon me long ago." Shukaku snorted in amusement. "Don't get scared and stick your tails in between your legs, you dumb fox. I wouldn't underestimate him if I were you, he's not your average human. And this isn't like you. It's rubbing me the wrong way." Shukaku answered back, feeling a little uncomfortable. Madara slapped his hand to the ground as a spiderweb design of kanji spread across the ground. Kuchi's no jutsu summoning technique. Obito's body began to tremble as the Jito Meizo was ripped from his body. "Obito." Kakashi spoke in a concerned tone of voice. The giant statue leaned forward, slamming its humongous hands into the ground. "He's gonna fight us using that." "Kakashi, can you do it?" Minato asked, ordered. "Yes, somehow I'll have to." Kakashi replied before channeling chakra to his Sharingan. "Kamui." The space around the Jito Meizo began to distort before it vanished in a cloud of smoke, leaving behind a single severed arm of the gigantic statue. "Did it work?" Minato asked his last loyal student. Kakashi was panting. "I think it was a failure." Madara had successfully summoned the Jito Meizo as everyone took notice of the gigantic statue, especially the Biju, Naruto, and Gaara. The right arm was wrenched off. "Seems like there's someone left with good eyes on the other side. Well, it's not much of an impediment. And now, I've got a cage for them." Madara spoke in an uncaring tone. Madara then turned his sights towards the Biju. "Now all I have to do is shove them in there. Can a fake Rinnegan from an Edo Tensei really summon that thing?" Son Goku thought aloud. "He's wounded and bleeding. In other words, he's not an Edo Tensei anymore. He possesses a real Rinnegan." Madatobi replied. "How did he come back to life?" Chimei groaned in annoyance. Naruto's eyes widened when he realized what happened. "Don't tell me he made Obito use the Rin Tensei," he spoke in a tone full of surprise and horror. Madara's wounds began to heal due to both Hashirama's cells and Senjutsu now implanted in his body. Madara quickly jumped up on top of the statue's head before whispering out. "Rinbo. Hengoku Limbo. Border jail." As the 9 Bijus all felt an invisible force hit them in the face. "Ah. Ooh. Hack hack. Ho ho. Ha. Watch. Rah. Aya. Ugh." Shukaku through Kurama all cried out in pain as they were sent hurling away. Madara then performed the snake hand seal. "That ought to have tamed you a bit. Now I can put on your collars," Madara declared as the Jito Meizo's mouth opened as it spewed out 9 purple chakra chains. The 9 chains made their way towards the 9 Bijus before quickly wrapping around their necks tightly. "Right, if I stop this Kurama mode," Madara just smirked at Naruto, trying his best to save Kurama. "It's useless. I've grabbed them and I won't let go." Madara chuckled darkly. "It doesn't work," Naruto said. "Kurama won't go back inside of me." Naruto roared in thought. Gaara attempted to save Shukaku but was knocked out of the way by Madara's Susanoo lance. And with the young Kazekage out of the way, Madara was free to extract the Hachibi and QB with no more further distractions. "Listen, Kazekage brat, you need to get Naruto to Minato. He has my yin half. If you can transfer my yin half into Naruto, he will survive." "Did you get that, Gaara?" Kurama asked the red-haired Kazekage. "Kurama?" Naruto yelled out as the QB was being forcefully ripped out of the blonde's body. Naruto recoiled backwards and began to fall from a height of 39 meters, feeling the effects of losing his Biju. "A Jinchuriki without their Biju will undoubtedly die. I can't let it end this way. Whenever have I ever given up? I'll never give up, I never given. Not until I become Hokage. I won't stop fighting, I choose to fight back. Everyone is relying on me." Naruto mentally retorted to himself as he gritted his teeth in anger. Unfortunately for Naruto, there wasn't much he could do at this moment. His body was getting weaker by the second, his mind was beginning to shut down. And unlike his mother, who was a full-blooded Uzumaki and was able to survive the extraction of Kurama, for a little while at least, Naruto was only half and was already feeling the effects of death claiming him. Madara stared on impassively at Naruto's body as it fell from a great height. All his plans should now proceed smoothly with that problem child out of the way. If he would have been the same age as Naruto, Madara would have been defeated for sure, but he was a seasoned veteran, and someone like Naruto would have no chance of defeating him. A disturbing grin spread across Madara's face, now that all the Biju and the chakra construct of the QBE were in his chains. Everything was going smoothly for Madara until he was attacked from behind. Bringing up his Susanoo ribcage to block the attacker, who was none other than the man who claimed his brother's life. Tobirama Senju. How Madara hated this man with every fiber of his being. Quickly conjuring up his limbo shadow and knocking Tobirama away like a ragdoll. Madara, unfortunately, did not notice the strange seal on Tobirama's back. It was Minato's Horatian seal. And in a flash Minato appeared directly behind Madara and slamming his Rasengan directly into Madara's back, sending him hurling forward. Madara gritted his teeth in anger. Why couldn't he detect Minato even after stealing Hashirama Senjutsu chakra? This turn of events broke his concentration, freeing the Bijus from the Maz no Kusari outer path chains. Minato jumped off the Jito Meizo's head and quickly making his way over to his son. Quickly placing his hand on the seal on his chest, Minato transferred the yin portion of Kurama into his son. The yang portion of Kurama made his way over to the father and son duo. Minato, this is your only chance, you have to seal me back and your son as well. It's the only way he'll be able to defeat Madara, he needs my full power. Minato simply stared at the large orange fox before nodding, before making a one-handed tiger seal. Seal. Minato spoke as the yang portion of Kurama disappeared into Naruto. Almost instantly, Naruto's eyes snapped open as he sat up. Quickly looking around, he saw his father sitting next to him. "Do-san. What happened to Kurama?" "It's okay, Naruto, he's back inside you, as both halves have become one. I'm proud of you, my son. I'll be sure to tell Kushina everything that you've accomplished. But I'm pretty sure she already knows, she's been watching over you this whole time. And for what it's worth, I'm sorry that you had to grow up alone, Naruto. Goodbye, my son, I will always love you no matter what." Minato spoke in a cheerful tone as his body disintegrated, allowing his spirit to finally be reunited with his wife in the Pure Land. "I will too, San Dadabeo." Naruto replied as he wiped away the tears from his eyes. Naruto now stood tall and proud once more, his blue eyes were now filled with determination. Naruto gained orange pigmentation around his eyes, as his once cerulean bluer eyes changed yellow with horizontal brick pupils. Naruto then looked towards Madara, who is now pushing himself off the ground. The ghost of the Uchiha was now glaring daggers at Naruto. Naruto happily returned the favor, giving Madara a glare of his own, before his body was engulfed by golden chakra once more. Although this time, it was different than before, Naruto now had the complete Kurama chakra mode. He had both portions of Kurama and finally reunited into one. Naruto's body was completely cloaked in golden chakra with 6 Magatama markings around his neck. The whisker-like markings on his face became thicker. Naruto had black lines traveling down his arms and legs. Naruto's bangs also stood up similar to horns. His eyes were yellow. His pupils are a cross of vertical fox slits with horizontal toad pupils. Naruto was ready to take down Madara permanently. Even if it meant he would die, he was still gonna go down fighting. Naruto turned his head to the other 8 Bijus and with a kind smile. "You 8, get out of here, you're free now. I don't want you getting caught again. Because as powerful as he is, it would take him quite a while to hunt each one of you down." Son Goku's eyes widened in surprise before narrowing. "What are you talking about, Gaki? Ha ho ho. We're not leaving you to deal with this monster by yourself. Ha ho ho." The large red-furred monkey howled out. Madatabi nodded. "Son Goku is correct, Naruto-kun. We can't just let you deal with Madara on your own. I wouldn't be able to forgive myself if you were killed because we weren't here to help you." Madatabi spoke in a slightly saddened tone. "There's no way I'm letting that fox outdo me again. Like it or not, Gaki, we're helping you." Shukaku cried out. "I'm with Madatabi on this one, Naruto. Me and B wouldn't be able to forgive ourselves if you died. It wouldn't feel right. Remember what Itachi told you. You can't do everything on your own." Jayuki spoke in a lecturing tone. "They're right, Naruto, you can't do this on your own. Madara's perfect Susanoo was equal in strength to me. And it's the same size as me as well. Even with Senjutsu enhancing my power, it wouldn't be enough to take him down. Accept their help, Naruto, accept the help of my siblings, and together we will crush this Uchiha shit stain." Kurama roared at Naruto. Naruto closed his eyes as he smiled. How could he have been so stupid to believe he could do this on his own? "Thank you everyone, it means a lot to me to know that you all care so much about me. Yes, let's take Madara down together and bring peace to this godforsaken world." Naruto roared as the 9 Biju cheered. "HN. Go ahead, fill those filthy beasts full of false hopes. It will make it that much sweeter to watch the despair on their faces as they are consumed one by the Meizo." Madara spoke in an emotionless tone as his single Rinnegan eye pulsed with power. "Naruto, we need to destroy that eye first. Whatever technique he used before to knock us away is obviously an ability that only another Rinnegan user can counter. Be careful, Naruto, because if I'm correct, it's going to be nearly impossible to stop him." Kurama spoke in a grim tone, while Naruto simply grinned. "Don't worry, Kurama, I'm unpredictable, remember, so let's show this Uchiha who he is messing with." Naruto replied to Kurama, who simply grinned in response. Without warning, Naruto kicked off, causing the ground to explode as he literally flew across the ground towards Madara. In response, Madara rose his arm in a defensive posture, although grunting in slight pain as Naruto's fist landed directly into his forearm. Madara then countered with a kick straight at Naruto's head. Naruto blocked the kick with his other hand. Madara then gripped Naruto's wrist before flipping himself over Naruto and throwing the blonde. Madara then turned to his side as he saw the other beasts heading straight towards him. Smirking, Madara whispered, "Rinbo. Hengoku." As the 8 Bijus all felt a familiar invisible force hit them in the face. "Not again. Ooh. Hack hack. Ho ho. Ha. Watch. Rah. Iya." Shukaku through Gyuki all cried out in pain as they were sent hurling away. Madara wasn't concerned with them, he could easily overpower them at any moment and suck them back into the Jito Meizo. Naruto was the real problem, although the Sasuke Uchiha he heard about could possibly become a problem in the future. And sure enough, Madara heard a familiar high-pitched shrill noise. Turning, he saw a familiar chakra shuriken approaching him at a frightening speed. However, Madara simply raised his hand preparing to absorb the technique, only for it to disappear in a cloud of smoke, revealing Naruto in all his glory. Madara's single eye widened in surprise before Naruto cold beat him directly in the face. The punch was strong enough to send Madara sailing across the ground before he was able to compose himself and landed on the ground gracefully. Madara looked up as he saw Naruto running directly at him with a Bijuu Senjutsu enhanced Rasengan. Madara narrowed his eyes as he manifested his dark blue Susanoo ribs, which were shattered the moment the Rasengan made impact. Naruto then noticed Madara had a grin on his face. It wasn't happy, it was a bloodthirsty grin. Ha 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 ha. "Oh yes, you're far stronger now. You're possibly even stronger than Hashirama, but that may be pushing a bit far, Naruto Uzumaki. Now, shall we dance before you die?" Madara spoke in a very cheerful tone. Naruto's eyes widened when he heard this, he was completely caught off guard, he wasn't expecting Madara to say something like that. Unfortunately, due to his shock, it left him wide open for Madara to kick him in the side of the head, sending him tumbling across the landscape. Naruto, quickly catching himself, looked up in time to see Madara rushing towards him with a psychotic look on his face. Naruto then disappeared in a golden flash before appearing directly in front of Madara with another Rasengan. Anyone else wouldn't have been able to see the blonde's insane speed or movement, but Madara wasn't normal by any stretch of the imagination, he had the Rinnegan and the highest echelon of the Sharingan. Madara dodges the oncoming spiraling sphere of death and immediately retaliated with a lightning-fast punch that made Naruto go flying back. However, Naruto dispersed in a cloud of smoke after taking the solid hit, revealing that it was a clone. When did he make a clone? I didn't notice it with my Rinnegan. Madara thought to himself, although he had experience and techniques under his belt, he would now have to act cautiously. However, the strongest Uchiha received no respite. A fully formed Rasen Shuriken was approaching from behind at frightening pace. Madara felt a small bit of disappointment, Naruto was still acting quite predictable, so his victory wouldn't be too difficult. And here he thought he may have found a challenge that would equal or surpass Hashirama. Madara simply turned around and moving his hand towards the deadly chakra shuriken. And once more, the deadly attack suddenly dispersed into smoke, revealing a smirking clone with another Rasen Shuriken at the ready. Madara's eye widened in surprise before a smirk appeared on his face, perhaps he was wrong about Naruto. But he can praise the blonde later once he was dead, moving his hand in a position that Naruto knew too well. Shinra Tensei. The clone flew backwards, dispelling in a cloud of smoke. Madara, still with a smirk on his face, was somewhat proud of Naruto. If he would have acted a little bit slower, then attack may have hit him. Especially at that speed, that ridiculous speed that was even faster than the Raikage with his lightning armor activated. Although the attack would have hit, it was a very small possibility that the legendary Uchiha would have survived. However, Madara had no time to simply sit around and think. Another Kurama Chakra mode clone suddenly appeared behind Madara, his body glowing an even brighter gold. There was another Rasen Shuriken in his hands. Madara could see the amount of chakra placed into the ability and how deadly the technique truly was with his Rinnegan. For Kami's sake, even without his eyes, he could feel the ridiculous amount of chakra placed into the ability. There was no way he would let himself get hit by that technique. Naruto grinned. Your 5 seconds are up, so take this and go back to hell where you belong. Naruto yelled out as he threw the gigantic spiraling shuriken sphere. That should have finished it. Naruto declared internally, only for his eyes to widen in disbelief. This time, Madara succeeded in absorbing the technique. What the hell? How could his eyes be that ridiculous? There should be some type of limit to how much chakra he can absorb. The blonde complained, seriously, the Rinnegan was stupidly overpowered. What happened, Naruto? You really had me going for quite a while. You stopped the clones and attempted to attack me with an actual chakra technique, how disappointing. I thought you knew that these eyes can absorb chakra, to be more specific, an infinite amount of chakra to be exact. Madara spoke in a disappointed tone. Naruto gritted his teeth in frustration. How is he supposed to defeat Madara, even with one Rinnegan? The man was overpowered as shit. Looks like you could use some help, dope. A voice called from above. Naruto looked up as he saw descending towards the ground as he dispelled his hawk summoning. Madara narrowed his single eye. This could prove to be a problem. Madara thought to himself. Sasuke then looked at Naruto. Naruto, you want to try that collaboration one more time? The Armored Fox collaboration, it's our best bet on defeating him. Sasuke advised as his eyes pulsed with power. Naruto nodded as he increased his power output, his golden chakra took the shape of Kurama in all his glory. Sasuke followed suit by manifesting his Susanoo over Kurama's avatar, manifesting a sword in each hand, as well as manifesting a pair of wings on its back. The duo glared down at the ghost of the Uchiha. Madara smirked as he began to chuckle. Well, this is certainly a surprise. Copying what I did so long ago during my battle with Hashirama. I'm honestly impressed, now let's see if you can handle this my perfect Susanoo. Madara spoke in a cheerful tone. As a geyser of dark blue energy erupted from Madara's body, taking the shape of a 100-meter-tall ethereal samurai warrior, with the second pair of arms holstered to the back of its shoulders. The armored Kurama was equal in size to Madara's Susanoo, and without warning the two behemoths clashed with each other. Slamming their ethereal katanas together, sending sparks and shockwaves across the battlefield. Madara sent a horizontal strike which Kurama jumped over it, unfortunately, it's the mountains in the background. The ethereal fox opened its massive jaws as he gathered both positive red chakra and negative blue chakra, forming a massive purple sphere of chaotic chakra. Madara narrowed his eye before widened as he saw the Susanoo armored QB shoving both ethereal katanas through the sphere, forming an Amaterasu. Sasuke roared as he cloaked the deadly sphere in the eternal black flames of Amaterasu. Right on cue, they fired the massive sphere of chaotic chakra at Madara. Unfortunately for Madara, his Susanoo had no wings, he couldn't just fly away like Sasuke and Naruto did. He simply got into a defensive position and hoped for the best, as he was using his perfect Susanoo, he could no longer use his Rinnegan techniques. The X-shaped Bijuadama contacted Madara, causing an explosion of epic proportions. When the smoke and dust had cleared, Madara was standing, but obviously with some difficulty. Instead of succumbing to the torturous pain, the man began to yell with exertion as his perfect Susanoo appeared over him, standing equal ground with Naruto and Sasuke once more. Naruto just shook his head, his smirk still in place, while Sasuke simply sported an emotionless look. Madara then felt something wrong, he felt an immense amount of pain radiating through his body. His chakra coils, they were damaged badly. What had Naruto done to that Bijuadama? What have you done? He said in an ice-cold tone, but even the members of Team 7 could see the cracks starting to become apparent. The shinobi in front of his was going insane from rage, now that his grand plan seemed to be at an end. Well Madara, it was quite simple, I infused that Bijuadama with not only my senjutsu, but also my wind release as well. You see, my wind chakra has a poisonous effect on whoever is unfortunate enough to get hit by it. In simple terms, it attacks your body at the cellular level, destroying your chakra network permanently. Naruto spoke in a dangerous tone. But that said, Naruto and Sasuke released their armored Kurama Susanoo collaboration. Madara, with very little chakra to his disposal thanks to Naruto and Sasuke's collaboration, glared at the two young shinobi standing before him. Sasuke, I want you to go to Kakashi-sensei and make sure you destroy Madara's other eye. And I'll meet you over there once I'm done over here. Naruto asked. Sasuke simply glared at Naruto, but nodded as he jumped off in the direction of Obito and the others. Naruto walked towards Madara, pulling out a kunai, he was ready to finish off the legendary Uchiha. Naruto hated killing, but someone like Madara needed to be ended permanently. As much as it pains me to take the life of another living being, I have no choice but to kill you, Madara, you're too much of a threat. May you find peace in the afterlife. Naruto spoke in a calm, cool tone. Enough, just kill that bastard already, Naruto. The sooner you kill him, the sooner we can go home. Kurama advised while Naruto nodded. I see, so this is it, huh? This is how the great Madara will die to a child, nonetheless how humiliating, but this will be my final action before I leave this world forever. Madara grunted from his position on the floor, already knowing he was going to die anyways, even if Naruto didn't kill him. Naruto suddenly felt the chakra and the vulnerable shinobi increase to heightened measures. How can this be? I thought to destroy his chakra network, what is he doing? Naruto thought to himself in confusion. Kurama, unlike his container, already knew what the insane man was doing. Naruto, get out of the way. Kurama warned Naruto, who tried to respond, but it was too late. Madara's Rinnegan pulsed with power as it opened a dark blue portal. Naruto's body was sucked up by the Uchiha's last jutsu. Madara, seeing the blonde's body slowly swirling into a portal that he created, closed his eye. If I will die, then the Shinobis will never have their hero back, Madara stated with a final smirk before dying. The only sign that the man had gone to the next life was that Naruto could not feel Madara's chakra any longer, which was a relief. His friends would finally be able to live, and his purpose in life seemed complete. As his final action in this world, Naruto slowly scrawled out a last message onto a sealing paper and dropped it on the ground wrapped around a kunai. Right when the kunai hit the dirt, Naruto disappeared. Hinata, who had seen everything occur, rushed from her position and sprinted to where Naruto last stood. Despite the pain of overexertion and chakra exhaustion taking over her body, she continued to run. When she reached the scarred battlefield, she ignored the deceased enemy and went straight for the paper and kunai. On it were scrawled two barely legible words in Naruto's handwriting that would make all that were close to the blonde cry from the loss of a precious person. "Goodbye, everyone." Naruto groaned, opening his eyes. He found himself in an endless void where in every direction there is a mix of iridescent colors. Naruto tried desperately to stay awake, but he couldn't. It seems exhaustion had finally kicked in. Hiding for nearly 2 days straight, having a Bidjuu extracted from you, resealing the same Bidjuu, and getting sent through a dimensional portal takes a lot out of you. Naruto could hear the voice of Kurama trying to contact him, but Naruto was too tired to answer back. His eyes were getting heavy. And the last thing Naruto saw was a massive red western dragon with a horn on his snout and has 2 sets of wings. The behemoth of a creature was making its way towards him before everything went dark. The large western dragon merely glanced at the unconscious blonde before gently cradling him in his large clawed hand. An interesting one you are. Yes, you have much potential in you, perhaps you'll be the one to unite the world. The massive reptile thought to himself before placing Naruto on top of his head. I know you're there, Fox, you can speak to me freely. Kurama recoiled in shock. You can hear me even inside the kid's mind. Kurama replied in surprise as the dragon chuckled in amusement. Yes, I can. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Great Red, Dragon of Dreams, the Dragon of the Apocalypse, or simple old DxD. Great Red introduced himself to Kurama. Kurama was floored. I didn't think dragons existed. But nonetheless, my name is Kurama, strongest of the 9 Bidjuu. Great Red nodded. I have plans for your host Kurama, nothing dangerous, just a second chance at life. I'll let him keep all of his abilities along with you, plus a few new abilities, and maybe a few more roommates to keep you company. The dragon chuckled as Kurama's eyes widened before he grumbled. Wait, what do you mean by roommates? I do not want to share my space with anyone. Kurama roared in anger. Great Red simply ignored Kurama's retort. Now listen here, Fox. And listen well. Well, you are close to Heavenly Dragon class, your power is not absolute in the world I am sending you and your host to. In fact, I can erase you along with your siblings with a mere thought. Great Red replied while he flew through the endless void of the dimensional gap. Hearing this caused Kurama to gasp. I got your attention now. I plan on giving your host Albion and Drake the 2 heavenly dragons. Because with their power and yours, your host Naruto Uzumaki will become something great, I can feel it. Great Red chuckled as he cut the link in between him and Kurama. Now all I have to do is find a suitable mother for Naruto. And I know just the dragoness to talk to. Great Red thought with glee. Kurama glared at the endless void of his host's mindscape. Why do I always get pulled into the annoying situations? Kurama growled before stomping around as he lay down in front of his creaky host's unconscious subconscious. I can only hope you're prepared for what this big dragon has planned for you, Naruto. Because I have a feeling your life is going to get a lot more hectic than usual. Kurama thought aloud before closing his eyes. I might as well enjoy the silence while it lasts. Before Albion and Drake arrive. Kurama thought to himself as he drifted off into a blissful slumber. Not even 10 seconds later, a pair of bright orbs appeared in front of the sleeping Kurama and the unconscious Naruto. One was blood red, while the other one was bluish white. 2 western dragons appeared, and both were unconscious, as if they were in a deep sleep. The first was a large red western dragon, with a long neck and has red and golden spikes throughout its body. The second was a large white western dragon, with 2 gold horns. It was a warm night in the thick creepy familiar forest, which was deep in devil's territory within the underworld. The moon was almost full, meaning that soon devils of all kinds would come to the forest to find familiars. However, there was a thick mist forming on the forest floor, making it difficult to see or navigate through the forest. The sound of humming could be heard from a large cave which was located in the northeast corner of the forest. And at closer inspection of the floor of the cave, one would notice cracks filled with what seemed to be streaming water and beautiful blue sapphires. And all one would need to do was follow the noise of running water, not like in a bathtub, but more of a stream. Which would lead to an open area that seemed to be a large pool of waist-deep steaming water. Leaning against the edge of the large pool of water was a woman who was completely naked as the day she was born. She appeared as an extremely beautiful young woman, with long slightly curly pale blue hair. She had a beautiful angled face, beautiful eyes that were a dark shade of violet, and her lips were cerulean blue. Her skin was bronze, her breasts were large, firm, and perky, with dark pink nipples. This was the strongest of the Godai Riken 5 great dragon kings, Tiamat the Chaos Karma Dragon. and she was currently bathing as she continued to hum a light tune. However, she was brought out of her blissful state as an immensely powerful presence made itself known. Tiamat's eyes sharpened as she knew this presence all too well. It was the apocalyptic dragon Great Red. Calm yourself, Chaos Karma Dragon, I am here merely to speak with you. Tiamat focused her sights on the entrance to the hot springs as a miniature version of the Great Red lazily hovered in front of her. Syareoo Shinte-sama. Why have you come here? The brunette asked, obviously confused. Great Red simply smirked. I have a plan which involves you. Now I must ask you to please listen to me because your answer will decide the fate of this world. This caught Tiamat by surprise as her eyes widened in surprise. What? The fate of the world would be decided by her answer? Just what could the Syareoo Shinte have in mind that could be so crucial that could ultimately result in salvation or the destruction of the world? I have seen the future of this world and it will ultimately lead to this world's destruction. Two people in particular, Rizavam Lavan Lucifer, son of the morning star himself and the beginning mother of all devils and Hades, the Greek god of the dead, who is a member of the top 10. These two will cause the end of the world as we know it, therefore I have come up with a countermeasure. The Dragon of Dreams declared. Why come to me, why not go to the faction leaders and tell them about this? Tiamat asked, confused as to why the most powerful being in existence would come to her. Great Red shook his head. That would do little good, since the actions of Rizavam are what pushed Hades into doing the unspeakable. Using Lilith's body to create an army of super devils to destroy the world, or at least all devils and fallen angels. Great Red replied without giving way too much. Tiamat was at a loss for words. Therefore, I have chosen you to mother this child I have found in the dimensional gap. He holds great potential to surpass possibly even Shiva, he also holds a great deal of power already. But to ensure that he has the power to lead this world to a brighter future, I have gifted him with Albion and Dreg. I have melded the boosted gear and divine dividing into one, creating a new Longinus sacred gear that even surpasses the true Longinus in power. Tiamat's eyes narrowed at hearing the name of Dreg. I refuse. Great Red narrowed his golden eyes, unleashing a torrent of killer intent, causing Tiamat to gasp for air. You refuse just because of a little grudge you have against him? That's foolish, you would merely let the world fall to ruin for such a petty reason. I will return your treasures in exchange you raise this boy and you will raise Naruto Uzumaki properly. I have seen this boy's memories and he never grew up with a mother nor a father. Great Red told the strongest Dragon King. Tiamat was finally able to breathe normally after the Apocalypse Dragon withdrew his killer intent. Why me? Why would you choose me, wouldn't Office be a better choice? Tiamat offered as Great Red snorted. As if I would let that snake anywhere near Naruto, she would manipulate the boy and turn him into an emotionless weapon to use against me. And the moment she's done with him she would cast him aside as if he was nothing more than a used candy wrapper. Plus, there is another reason why I chose you, Chaos Karma Dragon, you have the backing of the current Beelzebub. And people wouldn't even question anything about his existence, most people would believe he was a love child in between you and Ajuka Beelzebub. Great Red offered. I've always wondered what it would be like to be a mother, but I could never find a suitable mate. Tiamat thought aloud, in truth she wanted to experience everything that motherhood could offer, that includes giving birth to her hatchling or hatchlings. Hearing this, Great Red smirked. I can help you with that. This caught Tiamat's attention as Great Red opened his small clawed hand, revealing a thick condensed orb of ghostly blue flames. This here is Naruto Uzumaki, I have converted his body into this sphere for easier travel. Now I could implant this in your womb and you would give birth to him the same way you would give birth to any normal hatchling. Of course, once he's implanted into you he will be born as your son. And I believe motherhood would be something that would benefit both of you. Great Red said as he chuckled when he witnessed a twinkle in Tiamat's eyes. Tiamat reached out her hand to touch the orb, only for it to disappear as she pouted. You still haven't given me your answer, Tiamat. Will you raise Naruto and ensure the salvation of this world? Or will you reject him and cause the ultimate destruction of this world? Great Red asked, patiently waiting for Tiamat's answer. Tiamat sat there in the hot spring water, she seemed deep in thought. I have a chance to have a son, a real son. But he's going to be the host of both Albion and Dreg. I don't mind Albion that much, it's just Dreg. He never returned my treasures and now they're spread across the globe being used by different factions. But Syareoo Shinte-sama said he would return my treasures if I raised Naruto as my own. It is a win-win situation for both of us, I guess. I get my treasures back and I get a son, my own hatchling, while Great Red prevents the destruction of the world. Tiamat thought as a small motherly smile graced her lips. Great Red smirked at the Chaos Karma Dragon. I honestly didn't think she'd be this easy to persuade, but if all I have to do to get her to raise Naruto is return her treasures, then that's a small price to pay for the salvation of this world. I mean, really, does anyone really understand how difficult my job is? The office is too stupid to realize what the dimensional gap truly is. It's not only a giant void, but essentially, it's a giant gateway that people can use to travel to other universes or dimensions. She wouldn't even attempt to stop people from traveling across different dimensions. And there are many beings out there that can easily annihilate me with a mere thought. That's truly frightening. Great Red thought to himself, remembering a hairless purple humanoid cat, Beerus the god of destruction. The large red western dragon shivered at the mere thought of a true god of destruction, one that made Shiva look like a single-celled organism in comparison. Tiamat had a gentle smile as she was thinking of all the things she can do with and teach Naruto. Oh, I'll be the best mother anyone could ever ask for. She thought as she looked at the true dragon before her. Syareoo Shinte-sama. Tiamat said, gaining Great Red's attention. I wish to be the mother of Naruto Uzumaki. I will raise him to be a proud strong dragon. And I will ensure the salvation of this world. Tiamat gave her answer to the Syareoo Shinte, who smirked in return. Very well, it shall be done. Great Red said as the small blue orb flew towards Tiamat as it contacted her stomach. Tiamat blinked once, twice, 3 times before the orb seemed to phase through her, before she released a small moan as she felt life beginning to form in her womb. Dawning blush on her cheeks as she looked up at DxD, who smirked at her. I expect great things from you, Tiamat. You raise him properly and I will return your treasures. But from the looks of it, I'll have nothing to worry about. Great Red said before opening a tear in space-time and returning to the dimensional gap. Tiamat stared at the space where Great Red once had occupied before turning her attention to her now slightly swollen belly. A small smile graced her lips as she rubbed her stomach gently. I look forward to finally meeting you, Naruto-chan. Tiamat thought before she leaned back as she began to hum a different tune. Kurama grumbled from within Naruto's mindscape, opening a single eye as he saw 2 large western dragons laying in front of him. One was red, the other one was white. Another thing, Naruto's mindscape no longer resembled an empty void with ankle-deep water, but a luxurious throne room. Naruto's subconscious was still unconscious, but he was now hunched forward in a throne chair. Kurama grumbled as he began to stretch before he began to wander around the new mindscape. This is certainly new, definitely a lot better than that sewer I was in before. Kurama thought as he walked past Albion and Drake, ignoring them for the time being. He also didn't want to disturb Naruto either. Something caught Kurama's eye as he glanced over towards what looked to be a bookshelf full of scrolls. Well, this is certainly interesting. Kurama said, raising an eyebrow as he began to scan the scrolls and So, all these scrolls are abilities that the kid had learned throughout his life in the elemental nations. Well, that certainly is helpful. Kurama thought as he began to read through their names. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, Rasengan, Futen Wind Release, Senjutsu. Kurama frowned. A lot of the scrolls were blanks, and only several of them had information in them. It makes me wonder how the kid made it this far with just these basic techniques. Well, Futen and Senjutsu are the 2 most recent ones. Kurama muttered before turning his attention to the large throne room doors as a smirk appeared on his face. Making his way over to the doors and pushing them open, Kurama's one somewhat enthusiastic expression changed to a deadpan one. Outside of the throne room was Naruto's original mindscape, the endless void with ankle-deep water. Why am I not surprised? Kurama grumbled in thought as he turned his attention to a large pillow in the corner of the throne room. Kurama gained a fanged grin. I call dibs. Kurama declared mentally as he promptly fell over on the pillow and released a relaxed sigh. Kurama once again fell into a deep slumber, only this time for much longer than a few hours. Tiamat was standing in front of Ajuka Beelzebub's home, but everyone else called it his lair. Literally, Ajuka lived in an average American-style house. It was a single-story house which didn't seem impressive compared to all the mansions possessed by every other devil in the underworld. However, there was a massive laboratory built underneath the house where Ajuka spent most of his time in. I wonder how Ajuka will take the news of me being pregnant. Tiamat thought with a slight giggle. One would believe that the current Yondai Mamu 4 great Satans, Falbium Asmodeus, Ajuka Beelzebub, Seraphol Leviathan, and Surzich's Lucifer, were just as cruel and twisted as the original 4 Mamu, but that couldn't be any further from the truth. In fact, the 4 current Mamu have not really shown that much interest in their positions as Lucifer, Beelzebub, Leviathan, and Asmodeus. Surzich's, due to his laid-back nature and being a Siskin, has occasionally neglected his duties as Lucifer. However, Surzich's takes his job seriously when it comes to domestic affairs and ensuring the safety and longevity of devils everywhere. Ajuka has outright neglected his duties as Beelzebub, as he prefers to pursue his hobby of inventing. Although when push comes to shove, Ajuka will fulfill his role as Beelzebub when it comes to dealing with the old Satan faction and protecting the underworld. Seraphol, due to her childlike nature, she spends most of her time cosplaying rather than filling out paperwork in her office. Although she has been present during several important events that required foreign affairs, such as creating a temporary peace and truce with Heaven and Grigori after the events of the Great War. And finally, Falbium, who is the laziest person in the underworld and stated on several occasions working means losing. Therefore, the underworld's military has gotten lazy over the last couple of centuries. Though many would not admit it, but the other mythologies in the world preferred the new Yondai Mamu over the old. Unfortunately, the direct descendants of the original Yondai Mamu did not take too kindly to this, as this sparked a civil war in between the devil kind. But with Surziches and Ajuka both being super devils with power that even exceeded the heavenly dragons in their prime, it's no wonder the anti-Satan faction defeated the old Satan faction. Tiamat shook her head, clearing her mind of any unnecessary thoughts as she proceeded to open the door to Ajuka's home, or cave as Surziches and Syareoo called it. Tiamat sneered in disgust at seeing papers littering not only the floor but every bookshelf and table in sight. It's a wonder how he survived this long on his own. It's no wonder his parents kicked him out. The brunette thought to herself as she made her way over to an elevator. Sighing, Tiamat placed her finger against the down button on the elevator, however doing so activated an alarm system. "Go away, I'm busy right now." A soft voice called out from the speaker system above the elevator. Tiamat's eye twitched as she pounded on the elevator. "Listen here, you green-haired troll. You better let me down there or I'm going to incinerate this place." Tiamat yelled, showing her frustration as her voice was amplified by her draconic aura. Almost instantly a small camera poked out from in between the speaker system above the elevator. "Tiamat. What are you doing here, aren't you supposed to be on vacation?" Ajuka displayed his confusion through the intercom system, as he knew Tiamat hated being disturbed while she was on vacation away from the underworld. "Look, I need to come down and speak to you, it's important." Tiamat asked in a pleading tone, and instead of giving a reply the elevator doors opened. Tiamat calmly walked in as she selected the button that would take her to Ajuka's laboratory. Most people would never consider making an underground mansion and placing a simple modern-day American house on top of it all. But seriously, descending 5 to 6 floors down just to talk to a single person was a little bit excessive. The doors opened, revealing a large white and black room with multiple computers displaying different types of code, beakers and test tubes filled with various liquids, and various other types of equipment you would find in a laboratory. Standing in front of her was a bewitchingly beautiful and attractive young man appearing in his early 20s, with light blue eyes and green hair that is slicked back. He was wearing a pair of raggedy jeans, a simple black t-shirt which was under a large white lab coat. "So, Tiamat, what was it you wanted to talk to me about?" Unfortunately for Ajuka, he did not notice the mischievous glint in Tiamat's violet eyes. Tiamat gently stroked her slightly swollen stomach, which was barely noticeable at first glance. Ajuka Tiamat began playing off the ruse that she had just found out she was pregnant. Ajuka raised an eyebrow in confusion. The man was a recluse who barely spent any time outside of his house and laboratory. The current Beelzebub had never had a girlfriend before, nor had he ever been in a relationship with anyone. Sure, he had lost his virginity a couple centuries ago, and it was with Aphrodite, the Greek goddess of love. "What is it? Come on, spit it out." Ajuka asked as his curiosity was now getting the better of him. "I'm pregnant." There was a pregnant pause, neither of them said a word. Now, to say that Ajuka was confused was an understatement. He knew for a fact Tiamat had never, and I mean never, been in a relationship with anyone in her entire existence. "This makes no sense," she stated on multiple occasions that she was waiting for the perfect person to mate with. Who was it? Ajuka thought to himself as he was desperately trying to unravel this mystery. While on the outside, Tiamat had the innocent but slightly embarrassed look, while on the inside, she was laughing up a storm. "Oh, this is going to be good. I can't wait to see how he reacts to this." She giggled. "Ajuka, I know who the father is," Tiamat said in a timid voice. Ajuka's eyes lit up. "Thanks Satan. Now I wonder who managed to knock her up." The current Beelzebub thought to himself as he was relieved and even more curious on who this individual was. "Really, now who is it?" he asked, completely unaware of Tiamat's sinister grin. "Why, you, of course. Aren't you excited you're going to be a daddy?" Tiamat exclaimed in a cheerful manner. "Oh, my Syareoo Shinte-sama, that face is priceless." The brunette thought to herself as she was laughing up a storm. Ajuka for his part had lost his composure as his already pale skin turned paler, his eyes widened to the point where they looked like they were going to bug out. The man was gasping like a fish out of water as he could only point a shaking finger towards the Chaos Karma Dragon. "WWHWHHHH what?" Ajuka screamed out in an uncharacteristic manner. At this point, Tiamat had finally broken down and started laughing at her boss, who was now glaring at her. "You think this is funny?" "No, I don't think it's funny. I think it's hilarious. I mean, you're always so uptight, I've never seen you laugh or freak out before," Tiamat said as she finally managed to calm herself down. "But really, I have something very important to tell you now, don't interrupt me until I'm finished," Tiamat said as her attitude and expression changed to a serious one. After explaining everything that Great Red told her earlier, Ijuka was once again at a loss for words. "I see," Ijuka said while running his fingers through his hair. "That certainly is a lot to take in." Tiamat couldn't help but nod. "And I know you don't want to hear this, but I believe it'd be a better idea if we played it off, that Naruto is our child at least until he gets strong enough, that is. I don't think it would be a smart idea going around telling everyone that he is a spirit or a soul from another universe that was implanted into my womb by the Syareoo Shintei-sama himself." And as much as Ijuka disliked the idea, he couldn't help but agree. "What about Syareoo or Syareoo?" he asked as Tiamat glared at him and shook her head. "I wouldn't trust those two as far as I could throw them. Do you honestly think the two of them would be able to keep their mouth shut long enough for Naruto-chan to grow up and become stronger?" Tiamat said as she had nothing against Syareoo or Syareoo, it's just that the two tended to accidentally leak important information when they get excited. Ijuka sighed as he did already feel a migraine forming. He knew this was true and couldn't help but agree. "Alright, we might as well tell Syareoo about our child." Ijuka sighed in defeat as he could already hear his friend congratulating him and Tiamat on finally hooking up. Syareoo, Graphia, Syareoo, and a semi-conscious Falbium were sitting, or Graphia's case, standing across from Ijuka and Tiamat. "So Ijuka, why have you called us all here?" Syareoo asked. He was honestly happy to finally see his best friend after quite a while, but he was confused as to why Tiamat was here. Ijuka had only brought her to maybe 2 meetings in the past century, so please forgive the current Lucifer, as his curiosity was now piqued. "Ijuka-chan, why is Tiamat-chan here? I thought she was on her vacation." Syareoo asked. "Well," Ijuka began as he swallowed the lump in his throat. "Me and Tiamat have something important to tell you." Ijuka said as his cheeks were heating up as a faint blush could be seen. Tiamat gave a soft giggle to which she received a glare from her pseudo-mate. "Tiamat has recently informed me that she is pregnant with my child," Ijuka said quickly as he slammed his head into the table, releasing a small groan, not wanting to see the reactions of the other occupants in the room. Syareoo and Syareoo had a similar reaction as they both jumped up and cheered. Graphia's eyes widened in shock, while Falbium fell out of his chair due to both the startling announcement and Syareoo's and Syareoo's loud cheers of joy. "I knew you had it in you, Ijuka. I'm so proud of you," Syareoo declared proudly as he proceeded to jump across the table and dive-bomb his best friend to the floor. Syareoo followed suit as she dog-piled on top of her two friends. Graphia, who had finally compassed herself, could only glare at her buffoon of a husband as her eye twitched at his childishness. Falbium, who had finally pulled himself off the floor and was back in a sitting position, he seemed to be studying Tiamat very closely. Something doesn't add up here. Neither one of them have shown any interest in each other. But I'll let this play out for now. The current Asmodeus thought, despite the man's laziness, he truly cared about his friends and comrades very deeply. Ijuka, who had finally had enough. "Alright, enough." Ijuka roared, releasing a large amount of demonic aura, knocking Syareoo and Syareoo off him as he stood up. "This is something I want to keep in between the 6 of us. If I find out one of you leaked any of this information out, I will blast you into oblivion." Ijuka shouted, showing his annoyance, which took everyone by surprise. Even the stoic Graphia and lazy Falbium were taken back by the calmest member of the current Yondai Mamu. "What? Ijuka actually yelled at us? Is the world coming to an end?" Syareoo and Syareoo thought in perfect unison with one another. Because seriously, Ijuka, they caved Willer, the calmest and nicest person in the underworld, just yelled at them. "Am I understood?" Ijuka declared, releasing more of his demonic aura as the two childish members of the Yondai Mamu hugged each other and nodded furiously. "Good." The current Beelzebub said before turning around and leaving, wanting nothing more than to get back to his laboratory. Tiamat watched her pseudo-mate walk away with a look of pure lust in her eyes. "Wow, I never knew Ijuka was capable of being so assertive. It makes me feel all hot and bothered. You'd better be careful, Ijuka, otherwise you might actually become a father very soon." Tiamat thought as blush dusted her cheeks as she followed after Ijuka. Not even 10 seconds after Ijuka and Tiamat left, Syareoo and Syareoo began jumping up and down with joy again. "I can't believe it. Ijuka is finally going to have a kid that we can spoil," Syareoo declared proudly as comical and tears poured down from his eyes. Syareoo was also excited. "And if their child ends up being a boy, we can set up an arranged marriage in between him and Ria's Tan, and so Tan." Syareoo cheered. "Yeah. That way I can finally break this stupid marriage contract in between Ria's and Riser," Syareoo said with fire in his eyes. Graphia stared at the duo with a look of disapproval. Falbium noticed Graphia's expression before he decided to speak. "You know Syareoo, Syareoo," Falbium said, getting both the current Lucifer and Leviathan's attention. "You shouldn't be trying to set up an arranged marriage in between an unborn child and 2 children who are only a mere month old. How do you know that they like each other? You don't know that. For all you know, Ijuka and Tiamat's child could be a girl. And suppose it is a boy, what if he wants to be in a relationship with someone else, but he's forced to marry two girls he doesn't like? Did the two of you even think about that? Falbium stated, causing the room to go silent. Graphia gave the laziest Satan a look of approval. I must agree with Asmata-sama on this one, Lucifer-sama. You shouldn't go off and get greedy like your parents did with Ria-sama. It's best to let these things work out on their own, then force it upon them and cause them to hate each other. Graphia stated, which caused Seraphol to pout, but she understood you couldn't force love on someone. But Graphia-chan, I have a feeling that they would be true lovers. Surziches declared as he imagined, a blue-green-haired boy and a red-eyed girl laying together in bed sharing a kiss. Surziches let out a satisfied sigh, as he had an expression on his face which was plain creepy, his eyes were all watery, he had blush on his face, and he had a creepy-ass grin. Graphia sighed as her eyebrow twitched, glaring at her husband and master. She slowly walked up to him before grabbing his cheek and yanking it hard. Graphia. Wet go. Dat hotes. There, I'm glad I got your attention, Lucifer-sama, it is time for you to go back and finish the rest of your paperwork. The Queen of Annihilation stated in a professional manner as she finally let go of Surzich's cheek as he began to rub it vigorously. Come on, Graphia-chan, I can do the paperwork later, let's go have some fun. Surziches said before he shrank back at the glare his wife sent him. I cannot let you do that, Lucifer-sama. Do I need to punish you? Graphia said in a sickly sweet tone as a sadistic smirk began to form on her face. Surziches shivered in fear before he shakily answered. Would you look at the time, I guess I better get back to my office and finish my paperwork. Surziches squeaked before preparing a magic circle to teleport him and Graphia out. The current Asmodeus shook his head. That baka will never learn. Falbium muttered to himself as Seraphol giggled. Tiamat had a smirk on her face as Ajuka was scowling at how Surziches and Seraphol had reacted to the news of his and Tiamat's child. I think that went fairly well, don't you agree, Ajuka-kun? Tiamat said with a gentle smile as Ajuka rolled his eyes. That's easy for you to say, you're not the one who got tackled to the floor. But I believe we got our point across. And I have a feeling that Surziches is going to do something very stupid and I'm going to have to beat him for it. Ajuka grumbled before glancing at Tiamat as he watched her gently stroke her slightly swollen stomach. A small smile appeared on the current Beelzebub's lips. Maybe this won't be so bad after all. I've never seen her so happy before, hell, I don't even remember the last time she smiled. Ajuka thought to himself. Tiamat. Yes. I've been thinking, when Naruto is born I wanted to know, are you going to tell him the truth about the Apocalypse Dragon, or will you tell him that I'm his father? Tiamat blinked in confusion as she noticed the confused and slightly hopeful look on Ajuka's face. Quickly smiling, the Chaos Karma Dragon answered. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it, but for right now I believe the best course of action is if we act like a married couple. I know you're not looking for a long-term relationship, but Tiamat paused as she was grabbed by Ajuka, who is gently holding her shoulders. I know this is sudden, but Ajuka took a deep breath as he calmed his mind. Would you like to go out on a date? Ajuka asked, unable to meet her gaze. Tiamat was taken back by surprise as her cheeks heated up, turning a bright pink. Quickly scowling and shaking her head, getting rid of any unnecessary thoughts. Yes, I would like that. Tiamat said with a slight giggle. Ajuka couldn't help but smile, and for some reason he couldn't help but thank the Great Red for this opportunity. It had been 9 months since Ajuka and Tiamat had officially started dating one another. And sure, it was a little bit rocky at first, as neither one of them had any idea what the hell they were doing. Of course, Seraphol took it upon herself to help Tiamat as much as she could, while Surziches offered to help Ajuka. Things were going smoothly until yesterday morning. Tiamat's water finally broke and the baby was coming. Ajuka nearly lost his mind, but with a quick slap to the head from Tiamat and the current Beelzebub teleported them to the nearest hospital. And a few hours later Tiamat gave birth to a healthy young boy who had bright cerulean blue eyes and pale blue hair. The whole ordeal left Tiamat exhausted, but she couldn't be happier as she cradled her son who was nestled into her chest. Smiling at her son and gently stroking his whiskered cheek and planting a small kiss on his forehead. Sleep well, my son, because you're going to have one hectic life, I can feel it. She whispered as she glanced to her left and saw her mate asleep in the chair next to her. Rolling her eyes at Ajuka, who was leaning to the side, honestly the man could create a method to turn humans into devils, and yet he fainted when seeing his son been brought into this world. Shaking her head and smiling, she wouldn't change anything about Ajuka, he was different and that's why she liked him so much. To say Tiamat was happy would be the understatement of the year. In truth, the Chaos Karma Dragon was happier than she had ever been in her entire existence. She cherished every moment she had with Naruto because she knew it wouldn't be long until he was fully grown. And she dreaded the day Naruto would finally find a mate and get married. She would personally incinerate any female of any species that she deemed unworthy of her son. Ijuka felt like the third wheel in this strange little family that had developed over the past year. He loved Naruto like a son, but this whole thing confused him. Here was a man who could ace any test and could develop any type of technology and was considered one of the smartest minds in the supernatural world right behind Yahweh, biblical God, and Azazel. But when it came to childcare he was lost. He had lost count on how many times Tiamat had yelled at him for treating Naruto as if he was an invention instead of a living being. And he couldn't help but feel jealous when Sasuke could get Naruto to laugh and all he could do was make the boy either cry or poop his pants. However, today was different. Syareoo had asked Tiamat to accompany her on her trip to Kyoto to meet with Amaterasu-sama and Yasaka-sama. Apparently, a new terrorist organization consisting of the old Satan faction, stray fallen angels and rogue exercises, and sacred gear-wielding humans. However, Yasaka suggested either an alliance with Heaven or the Grigori, but much to the QB's surprise Amaterasu suggested the Devils. Tiamat had no idea why Syareoo wanted her to join her for the negotiation terms for an alliance in between the underworld, Kyoto's Yokai faction, and Takamagahara. Syareoo simply stated that Naruto was just insurance, which only caused the Dragon King to growl. Her precious little Naruto-kun was not some item to use to form an alliance, he was her only son, and she'd be damned if anyone would ever use him against her. Syareoo was wearing a bright pink kimono with various designs and colors that were sewn into the fabric. She walked well more like skipped through the streets of Kyoto while humming a cheerful tune. Walking behind her at a slower pace was Tiamat, who is dressed in a royal blue kimono, and unlike Syareoo's, who looked like an epileptic's worst nightmare, hers was much more normal. And in her arms Naruto was wearing a mini kimono that consisted of golden yellow and cerulean blue. The young brunette was a bundle of energy that could bring light to the darkest of people. "Come on, Tia-chan. We're going to be late at this rate." The current Leviathan called out to the Chaos Karma Dragon, who glared back. "Syareoo, we're not going to be late, we still got time to spare." Syareoo pouted at Tiamat. "You don't have to be such a stick in the mud. We're going to be late for being early." Tiamat just sighed. There was no point in arguing with the current Leviathan, it would only cause her a greater headache. Tiamat then noticed everyone was staring at them, both tourists and locals alike. "I'm so going to kill this chibi Satan. She's humiliating both of us in public and she doesn't even seem to care," the brunette thought in a sinister manner. Tiamat's eyes softened as she observed not only the architecture but the various shrines that were scattered throughout the beautiful city of Kyoto. "I wouldn't mind moving here if it weren't for Ijuka-kun's status as Beelzebub. I would consider asking him to move here. It's peaceful and the people here are nice too, unlike the underworld and all those greedy devils." Tiamat thought as she glanced down at her son, who was laughing cheerfully and clapping his hands together. This brought a smile to Tiamat's face. Whenever her son would either laugh or smile, he would always brighten up her day, no matter how crappy it could have been. Syareoo sent Tiamat a smile, not a fake one but a genuine one. The current Leviathan was truly happy for the Chaos Karma Dragon and her friend Ijuka. They both deserved happiness and love, but that left the question, would she ever find love? Syareoo frowned. "No matter where I look, people never seem to want to be in a relationship with me. I know I act childish, but I can't help but it's just who I am. And to make matters worse, people only want to be around me so they can have sex with me." Syareoo sighed as her eyes lost their luster for a split second. "Syareoo, do you remember where Amaterasu and Yasaka wanted to meet us?" Tiamat's question snapped Syareoo out of her thoughts. Syareoo tapped her finger against her chin. "I believe they wanted to meet us at the Imperial Palace." The strongest female devil thought aloud. "Or was it a tea shop?" Tiamat's eye twitched. "Don't you think this would be important information to know, or are you just coming up with this stuff on the fly?" Tiamat asked, obviously annoyed with her travel companion. "Ma, you make it sound like I'm an idiot." Syareoo huffed as she crossed her arms underneath her large bust, glaring at the Dragon King. Tiamat growled in response as her pupils shifted from round to slits, her body was giving off a cold feeling. "I might be inclined to agree." Syareoo looked hurt by the Dragon King's comment. And before she could retort, a voice made itself known. Leviathan-sama and the Chaos Karma Dragon. Turning towards the voice, they were greeted by a young man with pale skin, red eyes, and black hair, and was dressed like a mountain hermit. "Greetings, my name is Jin, and I'm here to escort you to the Imperial Palace. I was expecting you to arrive at the train station, but when you didn't, it took me a while to seek you out," Jin explained in a gentle tone. Tiamat stared at the man before her. She deduced that this man was a Karasu Tengu. "There's no reason to apologize, Jin, it was this Baka's fault, that's why you didn't meet us at the train station," Tiamat said while gesturing toward Syareoo, who looked like she had been slapped. Raising an eyebrow, Jin couldn't help but glance at the current Leviathan. "Well, what is done is done. Amaterasu-sama and Yasaka-hime are awaiting your arrival." Jin gestured for them to follow. Tiamat gently laid Naruto down in a crib within the meeting room of the Imperial Palace, within the West Yokai faction territory. Tiamat smiled down at her son, who was laying next to Yusaka's daughter Kunu, who is adorable in her opinion. Turning around and making her way toward Syareoo, who is sitting across from Amaterasu and Yusaka. Amaterasu was a black-haired beauty, with straight silk hair held by a golden tiara with blue sapphires embedded in it. Her face was elegantly shaped, the shapes of her eyes were perfectly oriental, but had a hawk-like sharpness to them, thick long lashes that shadowed her eyes. Her gaze, well to be more specific her eyes were like molten gold. Her soft small lips pressed into a thin line. She wore a beautiful ceremonial silk red and white kimono, held in place by a pink sash and black hobi. Yusaka had long golden blonde hair and matching eyes, with a voluptuous figure, 9 golden fox tails and matching ears. Her attire is a traditional Maiko outfit and tall jeta with white tabi. The sleeves of her haori feature a giant red star-shaped pentagram, surrounded by 5 smaller pentagrams in between the points. I'm glad that you made it, Leviathan Dono, and I must say I'm honestly surprised that you came along, Chaos Karma Dragon. Amaterasu said as she took a sip of tea. Syareoo's once cheerful expression was replaced by a serious one. Amaterasu Dono, thank you for giving us this opportunity to forge an alliance with you and Yusaka-sama. Syareoo said while bowing her head slightly. Amaterasu smiled. There's no need to be so formal with me, Syareoo-san, I know it's not your style. Amaterasu couldn't help but giggle when she saw the current Leviathan breathed a sigh of relief. Amaterasu's cheerful expression turned to a serious one. I also wanted to talk to you about this terrorist organization that has been growing over the past few decades. They had been launching attacks on not only the East and West Yokai factions, but also have most recently attacked the Greek and Norse factions as well. I tried reaching out to both, but Zeus, being a prideful paranoid asshole that he, refused us quite harshly. And odd and well, let's just say me and him don't get along too well after our last meeting. Tiamat and Syareoo both shared Amaterasu's dislike for Zeus, as the man was not only a whore, but also one of the biggest hypocrites in the supernatural world. Do you know any of the members of this terrorist organization, Amaterasu-san? Syareoo asked, hoping to get to the bottom of this. Yusaka glanced at Amaterasu, who nodded. Well, Leviathan-sama, we only know 3 of their members so far. And I believe you're all too familiar with these 3, Kateria Leviathan, Crucery Asmodeus, and Shalba Beelzebub. Yusaka spat their names out with such venom which caused everyone in the room to flinch. Amaterasu knew Yusaka held hatred for the old Satan faction, for the death of her late husband and the father of her daughter Kunu, Rakai Kinchigo, an ex-exorcist. Amaterasu watched the reactions of both Syareoo and Tiamat carefully. Tiamat scowled at the mention of the original Yondai Mamu's descendants, while Syareoo shook her head in disappointment. I'm sorry for any problems that they've caused you both. They have been nothing but trouble since losing the civil war a century and a half ago. I never knew they would take things this far. We'll help you in any way that we possibly can. Syareoo apologized to Yusaka and Amaterasu. Amaterasu nodded lightly. Although I'm surprised Rizavam Live and Lucifer didn't join in the fray. Amaterasu asked, honestly curious as to where the son of Lucifer was. This gained a confused look from Tiamat and a slightly pleased expression from Syareoo. At least that monster didn't cause any trouble yet. To be completely honest, he vanished slightly before the civil war happened. No one has seen him since, as he's shown very little interest in the underworld or the Lucifer position. He predicted that we would win the civil war, even if he did join the old Satan faction. And he laughed at Kateria, Crucery, and Shalba, calling them foolish for pursuing their parents' positions of power. Syareoo elaborated further. This seemed to calm Yusaka down somewhat as her scowl turned into a frown. I'm not letting your kind turn my people into slaves. Yusaka stated while Syareoo had no intention of asking about that. You have nothing to fear, Yusaka-chan, as the current Leviathan I will ensure that none of your people are turned into devils. Unless they wish for it to happen. Syareoo offered while Amaterasu nodded. That is fair, don't you think so, Yusaka-chan? Yusaka nodded as she now had a calmer expression. I do have another thing I would like to bring up. A possible marriage contract in between a member from the underworld and a member from either the Yokai or Shinto faction. Amaterasu offered as Tiamat gained a more serious expression, while Syareoo gained a more thoughtful one. Yusaka also listened in closely, curious on who would marry who. I have a suggestion. Syareoo announced cheerfully, which caused the sun goddess to smile, as Tiamat and Yusaka began to feel impending doom closing in on them. Do you now, Syareoo-san? Well, let's hear your suggestion. Amaterasu sounded a little too eager for Yusaka's liking. I suggest a marriage contract in between Naruto-chan, the son of Tiamat the Chaos Karma Dragon, and Ajuka Beelzebub, and Kunu, the daughter of Yusaka and the late Rakai Kinchigo. Syareoo replied as Amaterasu smiled at the idea, while Yusaka and Tiamat stared at each other with a feeling of dread filling both of them. Amaterasu-sama, you can't be considering this, Yusaka demanded. Amaterasu glanced at Yusaka with a sad expression. I know you may not like this right now, Yusaka, but this could prove to be beneficial towards this alliance. Amaterasu stated as Yusaka narrowed her eyes. Tiamat glaring at the current Leviathan before she hatched an idea. Amaterasu-san, I have a suggestion. Amaterasu turned towards the Dragon King with a delicate eyebrow raised. Amaterasu then gestured for Tiamat to continue while Yusaka stared at the dragon with her heated gaze. I suggest we should not make this marriage contract absolute. Instead, we should see if our children actually do have feelings towards one another, that way if they do, this marriage will be genuine instead of forced. And even if our children don't marry, I'm sure someone else could fill the role for them. Tiamat said, hoping to save her precious Naruto from a possible loveless marriage. Amaterasu seemed to smile at this idea. I believe that could definitely work, as I don't want the children to be stuck in a loveless marriage. As I know personally how much grief that can cause you. Amaterasu replied as Yusaka sent the Chaos Karma Dragon an appreciative nod. Syareoo couldn't help but smile, as she couldn't believe that Tiamat managed to steal her idea. Well, technically wasn't her idea, she just remembered what Falbium told her when Sasuke tried to set up Naruto with Rias. I believe this will be the beginning of a wonderful partnership in the Lion, Syareoo-san. Amaterasu extended a hand to the current Leviathan, who graciously took it and shook hands. Yusaka walked towards Tiamat, the two mothers stared into each other's eyes, almost as if they were gauging each other. For your sake I hope this works, because if your son hurts my daughter I will kill him. Yusaka whispered, to which Tiamat retorted. The same goes to you, Vixen. Syareoo glanced into the crib as she smiled. Hey. Tiamat-chan, Yusaka-chan, come and look at this. Syareoo called out to the two mothers. Making their way over to the crib, they couldn't help but coo at what they saw. Both Naruto and Kunu were hugging each other, as they seemed to be enjoying each other's embrace. Despite only being infants, they seemed to have already sparked a connection in between one another. Amaterasu smiled at the scene before her. It seems they've already taken a liking to each other. Amaterasu giggled into her hand. You two might be mother-in-laws very soon, so I guess the two of you will have to get used to one another. Amaterasu joked slightly while Syareoo couldn't help but giggle as well. Sadly enough, Yusaka and Tiamat simply glared at one another, sending out childish death threats, which causing the leader of the Shinto faction and the current Leviathan to simply sweat drop. Amaterasu leaned down and whispered into Syareoo's ear. I also don't want there to be any secrets in between us, Syareoo. And please do inform Sasuke that I wish to meet with him in a week's time in Kuo Town. Amaterasu whispered to the current Leviathan, who nodded in response. I'll be sure to inform Sasuke-chan. Syareoo replied. Ajuka had a worried expression as he paced back and forth. Sasuke simply watched his friend with a concerned expression. While Graphia was off enjoying a nice long soak in a hot tub, today was her day off and she wanted to enjoy it to the fullest. Falbium was also observing Ajuka through a half-cracked open eye as he had his head laying on the table. Ajuka, calm down. I'm sure Tiamat and Naruto will be fine, remember, Syareoo is with them. Sasuke reassured his friend, who simply grumbled in response. I can't help it, Sasuke, I've grown attached to both of them. I can't help but worry. Ajuka replied. And that's all well and good, but could you please stop pacing back and forth before you put a hole in the floor? Ajuka didn't reply. He didn't even seem to notice Sasuke's plea as he continued pacing. Just sit down and relax, Ajuka, they'll be fine. The lazy voice of Falbium made itself known. Sasuke glanced towards his friend before smiling. Falbium, I honestly thought you were asleep. The current Asmadia snorted in amusement before laying his head back down. A pale blue magic circle appeared on the floor, catching the attention of the three men who glanced towards it, recognizing that it was Syareoo's magic circle. Ajuka released a sigh of relief as Tiamat, holding Naruto, and Syareoo stepped out from the magic circle before it vanished. We're back. Syareoo declared cheerfully as Tiamat walked towards Ajuka with Naruto in her arms. Sasuke interlocked his fingers as he gained a serious expression. So Syareoo, how did the negotiations go for an alliance with Takamegahara and Kyoto? Syareoo looked at the current Lucifer as she gave a cheerful smile and gave him a thumbs up. We're officially allies now, of course we have a couple of guidelines we have to abide by. Sasuke smiled as he clapped his hands together. Wonderful, let's hear them. Falbium sat up as he too was curious on what these guidelines were. While Ajuka sat down next to Tiamat as Naruto was sound asleep in her arms. Well, for one, no devils are allowed to forcefully reincarnate any members of the Shinto or Yokai faction without their consent. And there is to be no secrets in between us, as Amaterasu wishes to meet with you Sasuke in a week's time in Kuo Town to further discuss the details of this alliance. And finally, there is to be a marriage in between a member of the underworld and a member from either Takamegahara or Kyoto. Syareoo revealed. I suggested a marriage in between Naruto-chan and Kunu, the daughter of Yusaka. And Tiamat also suggested that this marriage contract shouldn't be absolute, and if either Naruto or Kunu don't harbor any feelings for one another and they find their true loves, the marriage can be called off. Syareoo said while Falbium smirked. If only the higher-ups could learn that marriage contracts only work 10% of the time. Then maybe the number of pure-blooded devils would increase. The current Asmodeus thought before glancing at Ajuka, who seemed to be a bit annoyed. I believe that's a wonderful idea, a marriage contract that is not absolute and can be broken off if the individuals are not interested in one another. Falbium stated before glancing at Surziches and giving him a smug grin. Your parents and the Phoenix family could learn a thing or two from Tiamat. Surziches didn't reply as he was crying in tears. His dreams of Naruto and Ria's being together had been destroyed by his best friend and his best friend's wife. Well, moving on, did they say anything else? Ajuka said, not wanting to deal with Surziches' stupidity right now. Syareoo's once cheerful expression turned serious. Yusaka's late husband Rakai Kinshigo, an ex-exorcist, was murdered by members of the old Satan faction, more specifically Kateria Leviathan, Crucery Asmodeus, and Shalba Beelzebub. But thankfully Rizavam Live and Lucifer had nothing to do with it, at least from what we know now. Syareoo stated. This snapped Surziches out of his little depression as he clenched his fists tightly. Those three won't leave well enough alone. I know we should have killed them when we had the chance. Surziches cursed himself for not having the balls to kill them a century and a half ago during the Civil War. Surziches, there is no point in beating yourself up over it. All you can do is learn from your mistakes. Ajuka stated calmly, while Syareoo and Falbium both nodded in agreement with Ajuka. So how did Yusaka react to the marriage contract? Ajuka asked Tiamat, who simply scowled at the mention of the Kitsune woman. Both Yusaka and Tiamat were sending each other death threats and glaring at each other. Although Naruto-chan and Kunu were hugging each other in the crib, it's almost as if they're soulmates. Syareoo declared cheerfully while Surziches grumbled under his breath. Ajuka snickered at the scowl on Tiamat's face. I don't think it's that bad, Tiamat, just give Kunu a chance. The current Beelzebub pleaded. This caused Tiamat to send her maid a heated glare. I have nothing against Kunu, she's nothing but a hatchling. I'm just worried that damn vixen might do something to our son. Tiamat corrected herself. Trust me, everything will be fine. I promise you that, and maybe you and Yusaka may become good friends in the future. Although only time will tell. Ajuka said before kissing Tiamat on the cheek. Ajuka was thankful for many things throughout his life, and one of them was his immense amounts of demonic power and stamina for one thing. And the last thing he wanted to happen right now is to get dragged into another session of hate fucking. It left him raw for days. Days, I tell ya. Ajuka-kun. Ajuka raised an eyebrow as he noticed blush developing on Tiamat's cheeks, unconsciously swallowing the lump in his throat. Ajuka decided to speak. Yes, Tiamat. He nervously replied as the other three Mamu just watched the interactions between the current Beelzebub and the Chaos Karma Dragon with interest. Perhaps I can put Naruto-kun to bed and we can spend the rest of the night together. She said softly while drawing circles on Ajuka's chest. Ajuka's eyes shrank in fear, he had unconsciously signed his death warrant. Sending a pleading look to his three friends, unfortunately doing so caused his whole being to fill with dread. Syareoo gave an encouraging smile, Falbium with his head laying on the table, gave his friend a thumbs up, while Surziches gave him a shit-eating grin. They're not even trying to help me. What kind of friends are they? Do they understand what's about to happen to me? Ajuka cried in thought. Tiamat stood up holding Naruto with one arm as she grabbed Ajuka's hand and proceeded to drag him out of the room. Well, it was nice knowing him. Surziches said in an all too cheerful tone. This is what you get for pacing back and forth on my beautiful carpets, Ajuka. Surziches thought sinisterly. I almost feel bad for the poor bastard. Almost. Falbium chuckled softly. I can't help but agree, I recognize that look anywhere. Syareoo said, gently tapping her finger against her chin. Well, I hope so, you're a woman after all. I've never seen a man with that look before and I hope I never do. Although I do know his pain right now. As Grafia has given me that same look many times, oh, the things she did to me would leave you horrified. Surziches said nonchalantly as he noticed his two friends' eyes widen in fear. What's wrong with you guys? Surziches asked cluelessly as Syareoo was gasping like a fish out of water, while Falbium almost robotically pointed at Surziches or something behind him. Raising an eyebrow in confusion until an all too familiar killer intent filled the room. Now Surziches was sweating bullets as he robotically turned his head to look behind him. There standing in her full glory, his queen, maid, and most importantly his wife Grafia Lucifuge. And judging by the look on her face, she wasn't happy, as she was glaring daggers at her buffoon of a husband. Grafia, how are you doing, my darling wife? Surziches said, well, more like squeaked, before Grafia grabbed him by the cheek and yanked hard. Grafia. Wet go. Dat hots. Grafia glared at her husband as a sinister sadistic smirk spread across her lips. Zetches-kun, please don't speak of what we do in our bedroom to others. Okay. She said cutely as she began to drag Surziches out of the room. Swaffle. Foblem. HWLP, MW. Surziches cried for help but was greeted by his two friends waving goodbye. Woo. As soon as the door closed and Surziches' cries for help became weaker and weaker, Falbium glanced at his fellow Satan. Let's never speak of this again to anyone. Agreed. 6 years had passed since the initial meeting in between Syareoo, Tiamat and Amaterasu, and Yusaka. And it started out a bit rocky, mainly because Yusaka and Tiamat were always at each other's throats, ready to start a fight at any moment. However, Naruto and Kunu quickly became best friends as they were always around each other. And another interesting note, they were both born on the same exact day, September 9th, which made it convenient as they shared a conjoint birthday. And Syareoo, yes, I know Naruto's birthday is October 10. However, when he was reborn through Tiamat he was born on September 9th. Surziches and Amaterasu further discussed the alliance, and Amaterasu gave Surziches the rights to Kuo Town as proof of their alliance. And this also allowed the devils to travel through Shinto territory without causing too much conflict if they informed either Surziches or Amaterasu. And today was a very special day, in fact it was September 9th. Syareoo always enjoyed spending time with the two little bundles of joy, Naruto and Kunu. Happy birthday Naruto-chan, Kunu-chan. Syareoo squealed with joy while taking a picture of a small blue-haired boy with whisker marks on his cheeks. And a little girl with blonde hair held back in a ponytail who was wearing a mini shrine maiden outfit. The day was Naruto and Kunu's 7th birthday. They were both smiling as they loved their aunt Syareoo, which Syareoo instructed the children to call her. Yusaka had come to enjoy Naruto's company as the boy was an endless bowl of energy and she couldn't bring herself to harm the boy in any shape, way or form. Tiamat found Kunu adorable and would never cause the girl any harm. Amaterasu always stopped by to visit on Naruto and Kunu's birthday, and just like Syareoo, she got the kids to call her Aunt Ami. Amaterasu turned her attention to Yusaka and Tiamat, who were both smiling at Naruto and Kunu as they continued to play with Syareoo. It seems the two of you are no longer at each other's throats. Amaterasu asked the two mothers, who couldn't help but huff in annoyance at the sun goddess, who giggled in response. As much as I hate to admit, Yusaka began while sending Tiamat a small glare. You are right, we have been getting along far better than we used to. Yusaka added softly. Tiamat nodded in agreement as she sighed. It's true, I enjoyed being in Kyoto far more than being in the underworld. And if it weren't for Ajuka-kun's position as Beelzebub I would move here in a heartbeat. Tiamat said with a smile. Ajuka, who was sitting next to Tiamat, rolled his eyes. There's nothing you can do about it, Tiamat. And I highly doubt anyone would want my job anyways. Plus, you must factor in, who in their right mind would want to deal with Surziches 24/7. Ajuka replied to his wife, who glared at him. Now don't get me wrong, Ajuka loves Surziches as your slightly slow, goofy, and annoying younger brother who you would not introduce to your friends. I know for a fact Surziches is going to catch wind of my little comment and will make my life a living hell. Ajuka thought to himself. Amaterasu giggled before making her way over toward Syareoo, who just pulled out the kid's birthday cake. Blow out the candles and make a wish, you two. Syareoo said to the kids, who immediately blew out the candle with a smile still on their face. Kunu turned to Naruto with a cute look on her face. What did you wish for? Kunu asked her closest friend Naruto, who shook his head. It's a secret, if I told you it won't come true, remember? Naruto told the girl, who just puffed her cheeks and glared at Naruto. Please, I wouldn't tell anyone, I promise. Kunu used her puppy dog eyes technique, but Naruto simply crossed his arms, looked away while shaking his head. Nope. But you can tell me yours if you want. Naruto said, but Kunu did the exact same thing Naruto did to her. No. Kunu said, gaining laughter from everyone who was watching the scene with amusement. Ajuka couldn't help but chuckle as he pulled out what seemed to be a medium-sized box. Tiamat's eyes widened before glancing at Ajuka with a look of disbelief. Don't you think Naruto-kun is a little too young for a set of evil pieces? Upon hearing this, Yusaka's eyes narrowed but remained quiet. Ajuka shook his head as he chuckled. Who said anything about giving Naruto a set of evil pieces? Oh no, Tiamat, my dear. This is something far different, my newest creation, and I'm trying to develop one for Kunu as well. Ajuka said, which caused the two mothers to look at each other in confusion. Taking the lid off the box, there was a set of chest pieces, but at closer inspection, they were cerulean blue with gems embedded in them. These are dragon pieces, giving Naruto the ability to reincarnate someone as a dragon. And unlike evil pieces, Naruto can reincarnate a god-class being with him. Ajuka said with a smile, as Yusaka and Tiamat were dumbfounded by this. And as for Kunu, I'm thinking about kitsune pieces, but I have no genetic material to base them off. Ajuka said with a slight pout. However, I'm still not finished with the dragon pieces yet. And I was hoping to possibly have both Naruto's dragon pieces and Kunu's kitsune pieces done at the exact same time. I think it will be a sweet 16th birthday gift for them. Ijuka thought aloud. You seriously made a way for Naruto to turn people into dragons? Are we talking about full-blooded dragons or humanoid dragons? Tiamat asked, more curious now. Ijuka gained a thoughtful expression. To be completely honest, I don't know. I would say probably humanoid dragons to be safe. But you never know, they might be able to turn someone into a full-blooded dragon. Isaka then decided to speak. You said you needed genetic material, does it matter what it is? And could you make me a set of these kitsune pieces if possible? Yusaka asked as kitsune were endangered, especially Kyuubi's, a rare subspecies of kitsune. Ijuka glanced at the blonde-haired vixen before nodding. Yes, I believe I could, and as for genetic material, a few strands of hair would be more than enough. Ijuka replied with a smirk, he always loved a challenge and inventing new things. Perhaps we should discuss this later, as I believe we're missing out on a birthday party. Ijuka stated as he loved birthday cake and enjoyed the look of joy on Naruto and Kunu's faces when they opened their gifts. Isaka and Tiamat looked at one another before smiling as they nodded before making their way towards Naruto and Kunu. Amaterasu was entertaining the children with her celestial body magic, creating small stars, while Syareoo, not wanting to be outdone, was creating crystals of ice. The sound of laughter could be heard from the empty playground that was half a mile away from the Imperial Palace. Kunu and Naruto were both swinging back and forth on a pair of swings, with an expression of pure joy marrying their faces. They always came here when their parents had meetings with one another, that way they wouldn't cause any trouble and get scolded. One would believe that these children were playing on the playground without any adult supervision. At least this is what average humans would believe, but any being that had enhanced sensory abilities would be able to detect several signatures watching from the shadows. Yusaka would never let her daughter out of her sight without several guards watching her to ensure her safety. It had been a little more than a month since Naruto and Kunu celebrated their birthdays together, and ever since that day they had been spending even more time with one another. Nothing sexual, as they are only 7 years old, for crying out loud. Naruto-kun. Yeah, Kunu-chan. I don't want this day to ever end. Kunu said with a cute expression. Naruto blinked before an all too familiar foxy grin appeared. Yeah, I totally agree. We've had lots of fun today, and I hope it never ends too. Naruto said. Tag, you're it. Kunu said as she gently tapped Naruto on the shoulder before jumping off the swing. Naruto sprung off the swing and began chasing after Kunu as the two laughed. I'm gonna get you, Kunu-chan. Mark my words. Naruto retorted while laughing. You'll never catch me. Naruto was now even more determined to catch Kunu. Meanwhile, all the guards that were watching over the two boundless balls of energy couldn't help but chuckle in amusement. Kunu looking behind her, Naruto was gaining on her, and quickly, and just as she turned her head back to look in front of her, she ran into something. It was something sturdy and strong. The impact sent Kunu to the ground. Owie. Kunu whined as Naruto caught up to Kunu as he glared at the man standing in front of them. Oi. What's the big idea just appearing out of nowhere like that? Naruto yelled at the man before the two Yokai guards appeared directly in between Kunu and Naruto and the mysterious man. Who are you? Identify yourself. One of the two guards declared, getting into a fighting position, while the second guard did the same. The mysterious man appeared as a middle-aged man in his 40s with shoulder-length spiky dark silver hair, a small beard and hazel eyes. The man was wearing Mao Lucifer attire, which was dark silver in color. The man had a cruel smirk on his face as he stared at the two guards in front of him. Ukikuku, the man chuckled before pouting like a child. I see no one remembers me, it's so sad. Well, I might as well remind you who I am. Then allow me to introduce myself. I am Rizavam Lavan Lucifer. The man said before crossing one arm behind his back and the other in front of him before bowing. The descendant of Lucifer, one of the guards whispered out as his legs began to tremble. The second guard turned to Naruto and Kunu before yelling. Get to the Imperial Palace now. Not only startling the children, but also making Rizavam frown a bit before his smirk returned full force. There's no reason to send them away so soon. I just came here to play a few games with them, is that so bad? Rizavam said cheerfully before one of the guards charged at him. Wasting no time, Rizavam caught the guard by the neck before applying necessary force and demonic power to his hand, crushing the guard's throat, ending his life. The sickening sound of not only the guard's neck but also throat being crushed was sickening. Kunu dropped to her knees as she was trembling in fear. Naruto wasn't doing much better as he felt sick to his stomach. The other guard just stood there shocked. His colleague and best friend had just been killed in front of him with no effort whatsoever. Turning to the children one last time. Kunu-hime. Naruto-sama. Run now. He yelled before getting blasted through the chest by a condensed beam of demonic power. Now that these two nuisances are out of the way, we can play. Rizavam declared cheerfully as he turned his sights on Naruto and Kunu. Almost instinctively Naruto grabbed Kunu's hand and began to run as fast as he could. Normally Naruto would have been more considerate of Kunu, but he needed to get them out of there as fast as he could. Rizavum had a frustrated expression on his face as he glared at the two children running away before he snickered. I do like a good chase. Naruto was running as fast as his legs could carry him while practically dragging Kunu in attempts to escape from the psychotic silver-haired man. The feeling of dread filled the air. Quickly looking behind him, Naruto saw Rizavum slowly walking towards them with a creepy grin. The man's aura felt bottomless and creepy, it honestly made their skin crawl. Naruto-kun. Naruto glanced back at the young blonde-haired vixen. Kunu-chan. Naruto replied as he could tell she was scared. Who is that scary man? While still running, Naruto could only shake his head. I don't know, I've never even heard or seen him before. Naruto replied, honestly his father was a Satan and he never mentioned that the original Lucifer had a son. But then again, it wouldn't really be smart to tell a 7-year-old about the cold-hearted, cruel, sadistic, psychotic son of Lucifer, who took great joy in killing his wife and abusing his own son. Naruto glanced back one more time and felt slightly relieved that Rizavum was no longer following them. Breathing a slight sigh of relief as a small hopeful smile appeared on Naruto's lips. Hey, Kunu-chan, I think he's gone. Naruto said as he could feel Kunu relax slightly. Unfortunately, Naruto ran into something large and solid as he and Kunu were sent to the ground. Glancing up, Naruto's confused expression was replaced by a look of pure terror. There standing above them was Rizavum in all his glory. The man's hazel eyes seemed to shine with an almost supernatural glow, and his grin was more sinister than before. Now that wasn't polite. Running away from Uncle Rizavum like that. Now why don't you come here and give me a hug? Come here lad and girl and let me squeeze the life out of you, slowly and painfully. Kaka-kaka-ha-ha-ha. Rizavum screamed out in an insane tone of voice. This sent chills down the 7-year-old spines as they slowly began to take steps back, only for the son of Lucifer to slowly advance towards them. With a cruel and sadistic grin on his face, as his eyes held much amusement in them. You know it's very disrespectful if you stay silent when an adult is talking to you. Rizavum said with a marking pout on his face. It seems your bum of a father and whores of mothers have failed to teach the two of you manners. Well, let me give the two of you a proper etiquette lesson. So, you know how to properly act in front of an adult. Rizavum once again screamed in an insane tone of voice, with a wicked grin spread across his face. Quickly glancing at one another, Naruto and Kunu gave a slight nod as they began to run, hoping to get far away from this monster. Unfortunately, Naruto heard Kunu release a scream as he turned around and saw Rizavum pinning her to the ground. Kunu looked up with a look of pure dread on her face. Naruto gritted his teeth in anger as he ran toward Rizavum with his little fist beaked back. Rizavum glanced out of the corner of his eye. Rizavum sighed with a frustrated look on his face, but the small frown turned into a sickening grin as Rizavum backhanded Naruto across the face. Naruto was thankful for the large amount of draconic aura he possessed, even knowing it was a simple love tap from the son of Lucifer. Naruto's small body was sent hurling across the ground, smacking into the ground multiple times. He eventually came to a stop as his small body began to shake in pain. Ujajajajaja. That's right, my cute little demonic dragon hybrid, let me Rizavum liven Lucifer, teach you some manners. Let's start by breaking your body and soul, and so you know manners, like the dog you are. Rizavum laughed out in an insane tone as he got off Kunu and began to advance towards Naruto. Oh, what's the matter, boy? Don't you want to spend more time with the legacy of Lucifer? Have you ever considered my feelings? This is how devils truly show affection. Rizavum laughed out as he kicked Naruto in the stomach, sending him flying. Naruto's small body came to a full stop as it slammed into a tree. Naruto, upon impact, hacked up a mixture of saliva and blood as he slid down the tree onto the ground. Rizavum was taking great joy in watching Naruto tremble on the ground in pain. He then dodged a small sphere of Kitsune by Firefox from behind, turning his attention to Kunu, who was glaring at him. Rizavum was no longer interested in the daughter of Yasaka as he pointed a finger at the girl before unleashing a blast of demonic power at her. Kunu's eyes widened in fear as the blast hit her head on. Hiya. Naruto's world stopped as he looked up and saw Kunu fall to the ground with smoke rising from her form. Naruto felt a flurry of emotions right now: despair, fear, sadness, and most importantly an ungodly amount of unyielding rage. His hair shadowed his eyes as he gritted his teeth, his body began trembling for a different reason now. Rizavum simply sneered at the smoldering body of Kunu. You're still alive. I'm actually quite surprised you survived that. Oh well, I guess I'll finish you off now. He said nonchalantly before pointing his finger at Kunu again. Rizavum halted in his action. The feeling of dread filled the area, turning his gaze towards Naruto's. His eyes widened slightly as he saw and felt a deep red malefic aura radiating from the boy. What is this? Rizavum thought as he noticed the boy's eyes were no longer indigo, but blood red. Naruto stood up, all his wounds healing at ultra-high speeds, his whisker marks became more feral and dark, his fangs grew longer, his hands became clawed. Naruto dropped down onto all fours as he glared at the son of Lucifer, the aura growing stronger every second. Naruto unleashed a deep beastly roar as it shook the entire forest and area, his aura caused all the animals in the area to flee for their lives. Deep within Naruto's subconscious, in his mindscape next to the large throne where Naruto's subconscious still hunched over began to fade away. And next to the throne still laying on his giant pillow, Kurama cracked open a single eye. So, it's finally happened. Kurama whispered to himself as he glanced towards the avatar of Naruto that was fading away fast. To be honest, I'm surprised it took you this long to wake up. My first and only friend. Kurama said as a feral grin appeared on his face. Two deep groans caught Kurama's attention as he glanced towards the two heavenly dragons. Wonderful, they're waking up, just what I wanted. Kurama thought sarcastically as the dragons pushed themselves up into sitting positions. The dragons seemed disoriented as they glanced around the throne room as their eyes landed on Kurama, who was glaring back at them. So, the two of you finally decided to wake up. Kurama said in a disrespectful tone, causing both dragons to scowl at the massive fox. Be quiet, you giant walking rug. If you haven't noticed, our partner's in danger. Drake roared as Kurama rolled his eyes. Yes, I agree, withdraw. What? Drake, what the hell are you doing here? Albion yelled at his rival, who in return glared back. What do you mean by that? Isn't it obvious this boy is my partner? So, why don't you pack your bags and go find a different host? Drake roared. I was here first, Drake. And I don't care what you say, my power is more than enough. Albion retorted. Finally, having enough of this little argument, Kurama unleashed a powerful roar, knocking Albion and Drake on their asses. Alright, enough both of you. And for the record, I've been here longer than the two of you, so I don't want to hear any crap from either of you. And what's so special about your power anyways? Can the kid use your full power from the get-go? Kurama demanded. Albion answered first, before Drake could open his mouth. Of course not. My host Naruto Uzumaki, I believe, is too weak to wield my power yet. He needs to train to utilize my full power. Albion answered with a little bit of pride behind his words. That is correct. My partner is too weak to utilize my power either. If he's lucky, he'll be able to summon the boosted gear or Albion's divine dividing in their base state. Drake said, following Albion almost perfectly. Kurama glared at the two dragons in front of him with a look of disgust. So, what you're basically telling me is that the two of you are nothing more than a hindrance to the kid. If he can't even utilize your power, then what good are the two of you anyways? Kurama snapped, silencing both dragons. Because unlike the two of you, the kid can utilize my full power whenever he wants. So long as his body can withstand the power. And I don't see either one of you in that much of a hurry to save him. Oh, that was uncalled for, you damn fox. Drake yelled in anger. Yes, I agree. Just who the hell are you anyways, fox? Albion sneered in anger. How dare this giant fox say that to them, the two heavenly dragons nonetheless. Kurama seemed to chuckle. Who am I, you ask? Well, I'll give you that answer. My name is Kurama, I am the strongest of the 9 Bijuu and the largest portion of the Jubi's power. I can flatten mountains and cause tidal waves simply with a lazy swipe of my tail. I can also level entire mountain ranges in a single attack, and when I sync up with the kid, I can take down a god-class threat. Oh, and by the way, I don't get weaker from being sealed inside of someone like the two of you do. Kurama chuckled at the very end as the two dragons' eyes widened. So, well, maybe in your prime the two of you could easily defeat me. But in your current state, you're nothing more than a couple of training dummies for me. Kurama chuckled to himself as the two heavenly dragons glared daggers at him. As they grumbled in response, to which Kurama laughed, he would not let these two walking sacks of scales boss him around. Rizavum closely studied Naruto's form as the aura went from a misty flame to a boiling aura in the shape of a fox. This makes no sense, he's half dragon half devil. Then why is he able to use chakra? The son of Lucifer thought. He wanted to know why something like this was possible. Naruto charged forward, throwing his fist at the silver-haired man, who dodged it easily. Rizavum was surprised at the boy's increase in speed, although he didn't physically show it. It seems you've gotten stronger from seeing your little girlfriend get hurt. Rizavum said with a snicker as he snapped his fingers, conjuring multiple magic circles that were pale blue in color. The magic circles fired countless demonic bullets at Naruto, who in return unleashed another beastly roar, knocking the bullets away. Quite interesting. Before he was only comparable to a low-class devil, but now his power increased to a high-class devil. I will find out what makes you tick, Naruto Uzumaki. And when I do, I'll take great joy in stripping you of this power and using it for my own personal gain. Rizavum thought as he reached into his robe, pulling out an empty syringe. Naruto's expression became more feral as he charged at the son of Lucifer, blindly trying to slash him with his claws. Rizavim easily weaved in and out of Naruto's strikes, with a bored expression as he quickly grabbed the boy's arm, jamming the syringe into his arm. The son of Lucifer winced as the vile energy began to burn his skin, quickly taking some of the young Uzumaki's blood into the syringe. With a satisfactory amount of blood in the syringe, Rizavim proceeded to throw Naruto in the opposite direction. Naruto crashed into another tree as he groaned in pain, however his pain quickly subsided as he glared at the son of Lucifer, who placed the syringe into a storage dimension. Naruto couldn't help but grin as he saw Rizavim hiss in pain as his hand began to turn red from Kurama's toxic chakra. "You little brat, I'm going to get you for this." Rizavim hissed as it felt like his hand was being ravaged by a disease or virus. Naruto stood up on his back legs hunched forward, opening his hand as wisps of violet chakra began to spiral into a compressed sphere. "I enjoy that look of pain on your face." Naruto roared as he charged forward and thrusting his hand forward. "Rasengan," Naruto declared as the sphere made contact with Rizavim, who is too focused on his searing hand. And to be honest, Naruto had no idea where this technique came from, it just simply came to him. "Ah!" Rizavim cried in pain as he was sent hurling backwards by the Rasengan. He was sent through multiple trees before coming to a complete stop several yards away from Naruto. Naruto himself dropped to his hands and knees as the boiling aura left his body, leaving him feeling weak and tired. Naruto made his way over to Kunu as he placed his hand on her and he could feel her breathing. "I'll get us back home before that man gets back up," Naruto said as he kneeled to pick Kunu up. "You little shit stain of a brat." Naruto heard the enraged voice of Rizavim. It sent chills down his spine. Turning towards the voice, Naruto was blasted by a large amount of demonic aura. Naruto was sent hurling back with such force that he not only broke through the tree but made an indent in the stone wall behind it. Naruto's eyes widened, the wind was knocked out of him and blood began to rush out of his mouth as he dropped to the ground. Naruto, with the last of his strength, glanced up and saw Rizavim slowly advancing towards him with a look of pure rage. Rizavim's robe was shredded, the shirt he had been wearing underneath was destroyed thanks to Naruto's QP-enhanced Rasengan. The flesh on Rizavim's chest and stomach were completely shredded. Blood flowed from the son of Lucifer's fresh wound. Naruto would have tried to crawl away, but he was pretty sure his back was broken now. Rizavim had no intentions of letting them live anyways, but now he was intent on ending Naruto's life slowly and painfully. Without hesitation, the son of Lucifer quickly and effectively grabbed Naruto's ankle and snapped it like a twig. "Why? Yes. 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 Keep screaming, you little abomination." Rizavim yelled out before grabbing Naruto, pulling him into a bear hug, squeezing the life out of him. "Now how about we try a new game? It's called Pop the Head Off the Little Abomination." "Ujajajajaja. Bye." Naruto released a heart-wrenching scream as Rizavim tightened his hold on Naruto's small body, applying his demonic power to reinforce his arm's power. The pain was far too much for young Naruto to handle. He kept screaming in agony as he tried his best to get out of Rizavim's iron grip. He couldn't even concentrate his draconic power into magic bullets. Even if he could create one, there is no way he would be able to even remotely hurt this monster holding him. Plus, he couldn't even use his arms as they were pinned by Rizavim. All seemed lost. Naruto could feel his world going dark, he was losing consciousness. The son of Lucifer's laughter of insanity became muffled and weaker. "Please Kachan to Sansara Oba Ami Oba Yasaka Oba, anyone please help us," Naruto thought with the last of his mental strength. Rizavim released Naruto from his hold, letting the boy drop to the ground with a thud. Glancing down at his handiwork as a sinister grin married his face. "Oh, what's the matter, boy? Well, this is getting boring anyways, I think I'm going to," Rizavim said as he placed his foot on Naruto's head and as he was about to apply some pressure when he was hit by an immense amount of force. "Beway." Rizavim screamed as he was sent flying through multiple trees by an unknown force. Now standing in front of Naruto was an enraged Ijuka who was practically leaking out aura. His fists were tightly clenched as blood seemed to be seeping through his fingers. "Rizavim live in Lucifer, you damn filth, how dare you attack my son?" Ijuka screamed at the top of his lungs. The current Beelzebub's power began to grow stronger and stronger until it reached Heavenly Dragon class. His aura wrapped around his body, taking the solid form that resembled black and silver armor. His hair increased in length, reaching his waist. He was surrounded by a green aura that resembled digital code. Ijuka began to take slow steps forward towards the downed son of Lucifer, who released a groan of pain. His aura itself was causing the trees and plant life to wilt. Many people would rather deal with Surziches than Ijuka for many reasons. Surziches could become the incarnate of destruction, while Ijuka could become the incarnate of alteration. In his true form, known as the demon god of chaos, Ijuka could freely alter and warp reality to a certain extent. While he was nowhere near Office, Great Red, Chaos, or Amanamanakanushi no Kami level, he was still no pushover. Naruto felt himself being picked up. Using the rest of his energy, he stared into the face of his crying mother. Naruto-kun, I'm so sorry, we should have came earlier, Tiamat cried as she hugged her son into her bosom. Naruto's vision went dark as he lost consciousness, and the last thing he heard was the screams of pain coming from Rizavum. Tiamat glanced over to see Yasaka clenching her daughter in a tight grip as the blonde-haired vixen gritted her teeth in anger as she glared in the direction of the son of Lucifer. Tiamat snapped back to reality when she saw a young man with silver hair that was tied in a braided hairstyle and was wearing a silver robe with detailed accessories. Euclid Lucifuge, Rizavum's right-hand man and Graphia's younger brother. I'm afraid I can't let you leave with that abomination alive. Rizavum saw my desires for that boy to be dead. Euclid declared as Tiamat and Yasaka both scowled at the man in front of them. Tiamat growled as her body began to emit a cold blue aura, causing the air around her to freeze. Yasaka's tails began to thrash back and forth violently as a bright golden aura surrounded her. Euclid smirked as he pulled out a small syringe filled with a red solution. I came prepared to deal with you, Chaos Karma Dragon. I'm sure you know what this is, it's Amel's cursed blood. He said with a sinister expression while Tiamat's eyes widened in fear. Applying slight pressure to the back of the syringe, causing the blood to squirt out. Because I know I can't defeat you in a fair fight. So, I must improvise and defeat you another way. However, before Euclid could make good on his threat of blast, the black flames destroyed the syringe, causing Rizavum's right-hand man to yelp. Now glaring in the direction of where the black flames came from, Euclid could make out the sound of gentle footsteps. What emerged from behind Tiamat and Yasaka caused Euclid's scowl to shift into a look of fear. Standing behind the two mothers was Amaterasu, the Shinto sun goddess. Her elegant face now possessed a scowl as she was glaring at Rizavum's right-hand man. Euclid knew he stood so much of a chance against either Yasaka or Tiamat, but Amaterasu was in another league of power. You have some nerve attacking Naru-chan and Kunu-chan while in Shinto territory, devil. The Lady of the Sun sneered in anger. Euclid took a step back. The only option left was to retreat. He would rather take a beating from Rizavum than have to fight against the strongest of the Shinto trinity, Amaterasu Amakami. It seems this is a bit much for me to handle. But I believe a tactical retreat is best for now. Euclid whispered just loud enough for the three supernatural women to hear him. Amaterasu glared at Euclid before unleashing a torrent of midnight black fire at him, but before the fire could make contact, Euclid activated a teleportation magic circle. Naruto-kun. Amaterasu whipped her head around just in time to see a thick boiling red aura beginning to spill out from Naruto's stomach. Tiamat seemed to be freaking out as she had no idea what this power was. It felt nothing like Albion or Drag. Was there something about her son that Great Red didn't tell her? Yasaka instantly jumped up, still holding her daughter in her arms and quickly making her way over to Tiamat, as did Amaterasu. This is chakra, but how does your son have chakra? Yasaka demanded as Tiamat could only shake her head. I don't know. Glancing in between the two mothers, Amaterasu hesitantly reached her hand out and touched the chakra and quickly pulled her hand back as she noticed her hand was covered in burns. This chakra is poisonous. It has a malefic feel to it, it's dark and almost sinister. Amaterasu said softly while forcing her divine power into her hand to heal it. Amaterasu frowned when she noticed the burns weren't going away, narrowing her eyes as she forced even more power as her hand was ignited in black flames. The burns began to gradually disappear until they no longer existed. The boiling aura released three chakra arms which grabbed Amaterasu, Tiamat, and Yasaka. And almost instantly they felt a strong pull on their consciousness. The three supernatural women found themselves deep within Naruto's subconscious, or otherwise known as his mindscape. Looking around, they seemed confused. However, Yasaka and Tiamat began to freak out as their son-daughter was no longer with them. Calm yourselves. Your kids are fine. A deep, demonic yet powerful voice called out. Tiamat glanced in the direction of the voice before her eyes widened. Amaterasu and Yasaka both followed suit before sharing Tiamat's same expression of shock. Standing a little to their left was a massive kitsune with 9 long swiping tails. Its fur was red-orange with black fur around its eyes that stretches to its ears, redder eyes with black slits for pupils, and the upper body structure of a human, complete with opposable thumbs on its clawed hands. And what was more shocking was he was sitting on top of both Albion and Drag, who both looked as if they had been put through a meat grinder. Greetings, my name is Kurama, and I have been with Naruto Uzumaki since the day he was born. Now I'm sure you all have questions, and I believe it's time that you tell them the truth, Dragoness. Kurama advised as all eyes were now on Tiamat, who looked nervous. Yasaka was trembling before this QB. It was massive, nearly 100 meters long without counting his tails. Amaterasu narrowed her eyes at the massive fox who seemed to be grinning at them. So, something about Naru-chan was never explained. Then what is it? Amaterasu asked, obviously curious. Yes, I believe it's time that you learn about the kit. And whatever you do, don't blame Tiamat for this. If you want to blame anyone, blame that giant red dragon called Great Red. Kurama explained with a more serious expression on his face as he stood up getting off the two heavenly dragons. Blame the apocalypse dragon, why? Amaterasu asked as she felt a chill go down her spine at the mention of the most powerful being in existence. Kurama waltzed over to his pillow before falling over on it as he gave a relaxed sigh. I might as well start with this. Naruto may start having weird dreams sooner or later, just to let you know they will most likely be memories of his past life. Neither I nor Naruto originated from this world, we came from a different world. However, I don't know the name of the world, I only know the name of the country, the elemental nations. Kurama said as he gauged their expressions. Amaterasu seemed to be the calmest out of the three, Yasaka seemed to be more nervous about Kurama than anything else, while Tiamat seemed extremely nervous. You see, we were fighting a war against an old enemy of mine. Who he was and why he starts the war is not important, all you need to know is that this man is responsible for Naruto being in this world, or at least partially responsible. Naruto was floating in the dimensional gap as you all call it. Naruto was saved by Great Red, who stated that Naruto would be the one to decide the fate of this world. And therefore, implanted Naruto in Tiamat after convincing her to be his mother. Kurama explained further. So, you're telling us that the Apocalypse Dragon is using Naruto as a way to decide the fate of this world. And he chose Tiamat to be his mother. You must understand how far-fetched this story sounds. Amaterasu said with a serious expression as Yasaka nodded in agreement. Tiamat sighed as she glanced at Yasaka and Amaterasu. It's true. Tiamat said as Amaterasu and Yasaka glanced at her. Syareoo Shinte-sama told me he saw the future of this world as he said two people rise of him live in Lucifer, son of the morning star himself, and the beginning mother of all devils and Hades, the Greek god of the dead. They will be responsible for the end of the world in the coming years. I asked him why not speak to the faction leaders and tell. Tiamat explained, causing the sun goddess and the yokai leaders' eyes to widen. Kurama nodded with a frown. Yes, and he also put Albion and Drag in here with me. Honestly, I don't understand that giant red dragon's thinking. These two are incapable of working together, so I decided to put them in their place by beating them half to death. As they basically told me that Naruto would be incapable of using their power until he became stronger. So right now, the kid is only capable of using my power, which in my opinion, should be more than enough for the moment. Kurama growled as the two beaten heavenly dragons whimpered. Amaterasu admired the protectiveness that Kurama held for Naruto. Naru-chan means a lot to you, doesn't he? Amaterasu said as a small smile graced her lips. Kurama chuckled slightly. You could say that. After all, he was my first and only friend. The only person to look beyond my persona as a demon fox and saw me for what I truly was. Kurama said before, it's the reason why I gave him as much of my power as I could. So, he could not only protect himself, but also to protect the little blonde vixen he's become quite attached to. Kurama chuckled as he glanced at Yasaka. Yasaka sent Kurama a nod. Thank you for protecting my daughter, Kurama-sama. Yasaka said while bowing to the massive fox, who narrowed his eyes. First of all, do not call me Sama, it just sounds wrong on so many levels. And secondly, I have a good idea on what you're thinking. And sadly, it would never work. I'm nothing like you, vixen. I'm a massive prime chakra given consciousness. I have no reproductive organs. Kurama said bluntly, causing Yasaka to blush as Amaterasu giggled. Yasaka was now blushing up a storm. Tiamat decided to come to her future in-law's rescue. I don't think that's what she was implying, Kurama. Tiamat said while Kurama rolled his eyes. I can sense emotions, or rather negative emotions. And I can feel a large amount of lust coming off her. Kurama said without a care in the world. Amaterasu smirked at Yasaka. Is there something you're not telling us, Yasaka-chan? Yasaka opened her mouth, and yet no words were able to escape as her embarrassment had reached a whole new level. Yes, it was true, Yasaka indeed missed her late husband, and a certain itch had been getting more intense over the years, and she desperately needed a release. I believe it's time for you to leave. If you ever need to speak with me, simply fist bump Naruto, and I will be able to bring you in here. Kurama said before releasing a large yawn. And before any of the supernatural women could even utter a word, they were forced out of Naruto's mindscape. Kurama chuckled as he closed his eyes. You better be careful, kid, because I have a feeling that blonde-haired vixen Yasaka may be gunning for you in the future. A large explosion of dark green energy shook the forest as a cry of pain could be heard. Rizavim had used his wings to shield himself from the blast. But, because he just withstood the impact of that explosion, more than half of his wings were damaged and blood was dripping out of every part of his body. Blood was seeping out of his ears, nose and mouth. Ajuka stood across from him without a single scratch on him with his hand extended. You've gotten stronger since the last time we met, Ajuka-kun. Rizavim said while his expression was intertwined with anger and unease. Ajuka didn't respond as he snapped his fingers as a dark green triangular shape made completely out of magic began to surround the son of Lucifer. Prepare for oblivion, Rizavim. I hope you enjoy the dimensional gap. Ajuka said before snapping his fingers again. Rizivim knew how dangerous Ajuka's magical shapes were, anything trapped within them could be teleported, altered, or completely ripped apart within seconds. With a quick flap of his broken wings and before the magic triangle could be completely formed, Rizivim tried to escape. Sadly enough, the magic shape completely severed his right arm, teleporting it into the dimensional gap. Ajuka glared at the son of Lucifer before sending another powerful blast of dark green demonic aura at Rizivim, who desperately tried to dodge it. Rizivim was many things: insane, incredibly sadistic, enjoyed causing others pain, but he was not stupid. He knew better than to pick a fight with Syareoo or Ajuka, and unlike the other three descendants who were as intelligent as a dumb German shepherd. He knew his chances of survival were slim right now, especially with Ajuka in his true form. Rizivim staggered backward slightly as he hunched forward, breathing heavily. His body was starting to go numb from the pain Ajuka had subjected him to. Rizivim had no plans of dying now as he reached into his pocket and pulled out a black sphere. Ajuka glared at the object as he prepared another blast of demonic power as the clearly insane super devil threw to the ground. Causing an explosion of dark mist, Ajuka narrowed his eyes as he unleashed a powerful burst of wind, knocking the mist away. Rizivim was nowhere seen, while Ajuka internally growled at the fact that he let Rizivim get away. Ajuka was now fueled by rage as he threw a punch to the ground, causing an explosion of dirt and dust that sent tremors through the entire city of Kyoto. Damn it. Ajuka roared to the heavens as his power increased further, reaching a level even above the heavenly dragons in their prime. Ajuka Beelzebub was at the very least 10 times stronger than the original Lucifer and nearly 13 times stronger than the original Beelzebub. Ajuka dispelled his true form before he made his way back to Tiamat and the others. Upon arriving, he saw Amaterasu healing both Naruto and Kunu. Tiamat and Yusaka made their way over to the current Beelzebub, both sporting serious expressions. "Ajuka-kun, we need to talk." Ajuka without hesitating nodded. "I take it you told them." Tiamat nodded as Ajuka sighed. "I can understand if you're angry at me and Tiamat for this. But for the time being we can't tell anyone else," he advised as Yusaka nodded in agreement. "Don't worry, me and Amaterasu-sama understand completely. And we'll do anything we can do to help." This threw the current Beelzebub through a loop. Just what the hell happened while he was beating Rizivim half to death? So this part ends here. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, so quickly like this video for second part of this series. And comment down below your thoughts about this series. And now it's time for me to go, bye.